Hello and welcome to the Loose Butthole Reviews. I am your host Smokey, and joining with me as always is my co-host Spooge.
Hello.
And joining with us is our co-host Starfish.
Hey.
And Murda's back again, joining with us, the co-host Murda.
Hello, I'm awake.
And we have a special guest joining with us. Omi is joining with us today.
Hey guys.
And
Hey.
before we get into the review proper, I always have to give the 3 rules to our rating system. First rule is it's got to be a fraction of 5, 1 being we hate it, 5 being we love it. Rule number 2 is if we want our money back, we give it a good old Jeff Goldblum. And rule number 3, if we all agree that's doing the review that it deserves a 6 out of 5, a God tier, then we will give it a God tier. And today we are reviewing The Craft from 1996.
Yay, this is my pick for October. And we are pairing it with The Covenant, which this movie is a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Covenant's
significantly
better.
by far, I am sorry about The Covenant. That was my choice.
Yeah.
Which
We
I
even-
was not on the review. I was not able to make the review, but I did watch it and fully got a Jeff Goldblum from that one.
I made
Yeah.
sure to mention. I
Jeff Goldblum. What does Jeff Goldblum want?
I want my money back. And I want angels to give it to me. And pixies to count it out for me. And a gnome or a hobbit or an elf to sleep at the foot of my bed and I just want them all over my backyard. But no matter what happens with any of that, I do want my money back.
I got you. I said you gave it a Jeff Goldblum.
Yep. And I mean, we even mentioned in the review of The Covenant is that we should have started with The Covenant instead of starting with The Craft, because it was just a downward spiral and everyone was like real done by the time we were getting through The Covenant.
Yeah,
Oh,
if we
yeah.
weren't doing a Covenant review, we could have totally turned it off.
That's fair.
Or you could have just, fell asleep at the end like I did.
Yep.
You
wish I
didn't
did.
miss anything. I mean, to be honest, when it comes to The Covenant, but we're supposed to be talking about The Craft.
Yes.
Would have been time better served.
So I got a weird
He-
side question before we start talking about The Craft.
Sure.
So if a movie's terrible and you rate it a Jeff Goldblum, why is it a Jeff Goldblum? Is it because you think he's a bad actor?
This is probably the third
no.
or fourth time. That's,
It
No,
deserves an
no, it's-
explanation.
It does.
It's a run runny run reference. There'll be a clip that'll play when we give it.
Okay.
So
Whenever we
basically, in
give
that
him-
movie, Jeff Goldblum says the line that he wants his money back.
And he wants like little fairies
Okay.
to count it out, little angels.
None of
like,
us,
to
I
hand
don't
it
think
over.
any of us here think that Jeff Goldblum is a bad actor at all.
No, not at
No,
all.
I actually like him. I like him a lot.
We love him.
it is just a reference.
Yes, and I
Gotcha,
think
gotcha, okay.
that was asked last time as well. We didn't make that clear to anybody.
No,
There's a lot of
Nope.
there will be a lot of references. I still don't get some of what Smokey says, so don't feel bad.
Just like before before we started this episode, like how he just asked you to do John Jacob. He said John Jacob for me. Just expected you to
know
Yeah,
what that
no,
meant. Yeah.
Sitting here in silence? Yeah.
That's okay.
He knows the nursery rhyme.
Yeah.
You can't just be like John Jacob, like it's a verb, like it's action. That's only I would get that.
All right, let's rein it in here, and I am going to do a pretty short summary of the plot, and then we'll just talk about all the things. So, 4 girls at Los Angeles Catholic School form a coven of witches that cast spells on their classmates and each other. Their new powers overwhelm them, leading to an internal power struggle. Sarah Bailey, who is played by Robin Tooney, I don't have that up. I think that's right.
Yep.
A 16-year-old troubled
right.
teenager with a painful past and history of suicidal tendencies and hallucinations moves to LA with her father and stepmother to start a new life. She is soon enrolled into a Catholic school where she comes into contact with 3 unlikely friends. Bonnie, who is played by Nev Campbell, Nancy, played by Fairuza Balk, and Rochelle, played by Rachel True. The 3 girls dabble in occult practices, and when they notice that Sarah has the powers of a natural witch, they talk her into joining their coven. After Sarah agrees to accompany the girls in their group, they soon discover that with a 4th witch in the coven, they are able to cast more powerful than they could before, and begin to amend all the things wrong in their lives. It's badly written. It's not my fault. However, like everything else in life, things come with a price. So yeah.
If you
go.
can spin a pencil like really like talently, that's a sign that you're a witch.
I think she
Because
was just
anybody can
holding
do
it
that.
up.
Anybody
No,
can
she was
do
just-
what like that. That's
No,
an
no,
actual
no, no,
trick
no,
that
they
you can
can't.
do.
No, they can't. No,
Yeah,
they
you
can't.
can.
'Cause
First of all, I don't think you
she
can.
floated it, dude.
She,
She
did
She was
floated
not-
it.
It was not
She wasn't-
levitating. It was not
It
levitating.
was drilling into
was
the
just-
desk. It actually like made a little hole.
Yeah, it was like spinning onto the
No,
desk.
she floated it.
I
She
did
was- I know
not
what I
see
saw.
It floating. I did
Holding
not
it up.
see-
She was holding it up to stand on its point by itself.
Yeah,
I
floating it.
feel if you had the point at the right point, you could do that. That's a trick you could do. I feel that's a trick you could do.
I don't think that you
I
could.
don't think you can. No.
No.
That's
I think it's all
witchcraft.
It's all semantics.
Absolutely.
It's all
If
magic.
I can look,
It's magic.
if I find a video on YouTube, I'm calling checkmate.
All right, prove us wrong.
Standing a pencil
Which-
on its point.
That scene was pretty like reminiscent of Buffy the Vampire when Willow and Tara were,
Yeah.
starting to discover each other's power,
Mhm.
which Buffy the Vampire Slayer did not come after the craft, but that story arc did come after the craft. So
Yeah,
I
I think
think-
the craft for the like kind of movie that it was, which was just kind of supposed to be like cashing in on the whole like 90s goth
Yeah.
trend, ended up being like really, really influential because I think without that, you probably wouldn't have a lot of the plot points in Charmed.
yes, absolutely. I
Um,
don't think
Yeah.
we may talk about it, but you may not have Charmed at all. I think maybe some of, later Buffy the Vampire Slayer, maybe could have taken from it. I'm not sure, how solid all that plot was written like beforehand or what, but I mean, there's
Yeah.
definitely vibes.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah, that whole soundtrack too is
Oh man, the soundtrack of
the
this movie
soundtrack's
was
nice.
lit as fuck.
yeah, it was very enjoyable.
I mean, we start out the movie with a cover of was it Tomorrow Never Knows by the Beatles?
Yep.
But I did not look up who the cover was by, but I enjoyed it.
yeah, no, I did not find that information either
I mean, this
for this one.
this era is kind of a whole renaissance of just kind of like that, like teen rebellion mixed with witchcraft stuff, just like coming right out of like not too long, not even a decade ago, like the Satanic Panic, like being a huge thing. Like I feel like it's definitely a reaction
For
to that.
sure. And I mean, even so far as, like more kid shows like or young adult shows like Sabrina the Teenage Witch and stuff like that. It was very 90s.
Mhm.
right. It was a precursor to the Hot Topic generation.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Goth was
it also
coming
came out the
into
same year as Scream. So
Oh, that's
Yes.
awesome.
So,
nice.
Nev Campbell, not a huge part. I mean, she's one of the four in this movie, but obviously a much bigger part in the Scream franchise. We also have Skeet Ulrich, who was also in Scream.
No.
So Skeet
Cool.
Ulrich was the douchey love interest, well, sort of love interest, Chris Hooker, I
Yeah.
think his name was.
No, that's
He
correct.
was not.
He was awful in
Yeah,
all
that I
ways.
did not
In
remember
all
his.
ways.
He
And
very forgetful character, unfortunately, because I did not remember that character whatsoever in the movie. Like I knew
Yeah,
she
well, this is
wanted
my
I knew she wanted somebody, but I didn't think they actually had chemistry or rapport. I thought that it was like some dude that ignored her.
to set the scene about this character. On Sarah's, who's pretty much our main protagonist, even though we
best
kind of
girl.
have, yeah, we kind of have five protagonists until we don't have them, until they're not protagonists anymore. um so Sarah, she moves to a different city and school, and on her first day she meets both this trio, and she meets Chris, who expresses an interest in her, and she is interested in as well. And he so I feel like Chris comes off as nice at first, even though like he's kind of talking shit about Nancy, calling her a
Yeah.
slut, even though he's like, she's a slut, not that I would know from experience.
Yeah, and just
Um,
to add on to that, like he like kind of introduces her to the girls by
yeah.
calling them the what did they call them? Um,
Ipswich bitches.
yeah.
Or are you did they say Ipswich, or are you conflating the
Fuck,
Covenant?
No,
I'm
no, no,
confused.
no, no, no. No. Well, it was like maybe
Eastwick.
witch bitches.
Eastwick.
Eastwick
Eastwick
bitches.
bitches.
Witches of
Yeah.
Eastwick.
Eastwick,
Yes.
yeah.
Bitches is
I was
better.
like,
And-
that's some synchronicities there.
No.
It's all the same witchy bullshit.
You got them Covenant boys in the brain.
Yeah, it's true.
I do.
They're models.
I will say, I this is my first time seeing The Craft, and this character for me is not forgettable, because he's so
Gross?
realistic. Chris.
Yeah.
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 Chris is extremely realistic. Spoiler alert, I'm gonna say as a woman a lot in this episode. Um, as we did in the last unicorn episode. You'll be hearing that
Yeah.
a lot from me.
That's fair.
But yeah, I just, I don't know how much we want to talk about it now, but like, it's
I
kind
got,
of the whole, like, this movie I feel like is very like a woman empowerment and like a teenage girl empowerment film until the end, which is unfortunate. And that kind of, you kind of get the power imbalance set up. I mean, the just from men, how men take away women's power and the girls take it back, which is it's part of what I liked about the movie until they kind of flipped it at the end.
yeah, and
But
that's
they-
actually something
They use their powers to attack.
I wanted to
They use their powers to attack other women
Say
though, as
things.
well.
Yes, so I
Right.
mean, it is not a perfect empowerment film.
I mean, it was a racist woman, so yeah, and she was pretty.
Oh yeah, the
awful.
racist bitch.
So,
I mean,
yeah,
fuck
so,
her.
yeah, so, yeah, so
Was she
like
the one
that's
that was
that's kind of
losing
the
the
whole
hair?
thing of like
Was she
this
the one
whole
that-
film is that
Yeah.
She was
Like,
racist. I
this
did not, I
tackles-
must have
You
missed
don't
it.
remember that? She was explicit. She literally
I
like,
missed
said
a
like
lot.
the
I
worst shit.
definitely missed a line. I definitely missed a line.
And I can't. That I don't even want to repeat.
We can't repeat her line.
no.
Oh, well, yeah, I definitely missed a line. I
She
just
used a
thought they were
very
just jealous
old,
of the hay.
like old white, old timey racial slur.
Yeah,
and-
pseudo-scientific
and that's actually something that like I really wanted to like touch upon with this film, because like almost all of my stars for this film later on when we get to final thoughts and stuff is that like it's this is an R-rated film, and it really does attempt to tackle pretty heavy issues, like pretty much right from the get-go. We find out that Sarah has attempted suicide, and they straight show like the scars going, in the correct direction, which I don't know if we can say that on YouTube or
I mean, we
not.
don't need to.
No,
Yeah.
we
But
can't.
but anyways, so like they showed that in the film, which was pretty intense. And then there's also like the racism stuff. There's also a lot of like the interplays of like misogyny and sexism that run throughout as well.
With
Um,
Nancy in her home life as well.
and
Oh yeah.
yeah, and it's there's times where this film's not afraid to pull punches. However, there's like some things that we'll talk about later on as well, that like it's sometimes for me swing and a miss, um just of the outcomes of the situations, like the heavy
Mhm.
situations they get put into.
There's a
Yeah,
couple
I
of
had a hard
scenes.
time kind of like figuring out tone, like, and who this movie was for exactly, because you have your first two acts that are very much women empowerment, and these girls have been wronged in a lot of ways,
Right.
especially like the character of Rochelle, right, with the racism stuff. I think that was like,
Hmm.
to me, that one stood out more than any of the other problems, mainly because like Nev Campbell's still beautiful and she just has like weird scars that no one else can see anyway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah.
her plot
Yeah.
point was really stupid, but
It was kind of weak for me as well on
yeah,
that.
but then it, third act, they're the villains all
Yeah.
of a sudden.
Yep.
And it felt like a weird shift, and almost maybe like the studio meddled a little bit,
Mhm.
because it didn't feel earned. It didn't feel justified that they were all of a sudden the villains of the story.
I definitely agree.
Yeah.
That's, the issue of why I can't give this movie a higher rating that I'm going to give it. Because it really could have been almost a perfect movie if it had gone a different way in the third act, which is
Right.
unfortunate. I
I'm
will
right there
say,
with you on that one.
so I'll lay out their situations. I mean, Bonnie Nev Campbell has burn scars all over her back from being in a fire. Nancy has a rough home life. She has an abusive stepfather,
I,
alcoholic mother. So
yep.
they're always fighting. The stepfather is obviously sexually abusing her. Um, which that one,
Yeah.
that one's really
Yeah, that
rough.
was hard to
Mhm.
see. Hard to see.
Yeah, that one was hard to see. And Rochelle, she is, in it looks like, well, if we're looking at the extras in the back, it's a bit diverse, but like most of the main characters that you see in the high school are white, and Rochelle is black. And she has a prime bully who is very racist and just straight up lays out that she is racist and that's why she doesn't like her and is being constantly bullied by her, who I think what is her name, Lizzie?
Laura Lizzie.
Yes, played by Christine Taylor.
Hmm.
Yeah, Marsha Brady in the Brady Bunch movie.
Yep.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
in Zoolander and Dodgeball, I think is she
Yeah,
not Ben Stiller's? She's married to Ben Stiller.
yeah, they've been married forever, I thought.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and she's like a really good comedic actress. It was, kind of weird seeing her being a racist piece of shit in this movie.
Played it well.
Yeah, she played it
Range.
well. Yeah.
And I'd also like to mention too, just that like, we find out like the suicide thing like really quickly, and then like within the next like roughly 20 minutes, we get a full racist diatribe, like really early on, and I don't know, it's just like it's the type to just straight jump into the water just like how I do. It doesn't really dip its toe and like kind of like builds a background of this first. It's just like, nope, this is Rochelle's problem, this is Sarah's
Yeah.
problem, this
And I
is
forgot to say, Sarah's problem is, she's moved schools recently, for just some trouble and, attempts to unalive herself.
Yeah.
This is
So
more of a production nitpick, but I feel that most of these problems could be solved with a few scenes getting a few extra takes. Some scenes were definitely like one takes that should have definitely gotten a couple of more, because there some scenes that needed a little more weight to them didn't seem like they did. Like the actors seemed more confused at their emotions instead of like actually
I
depressed.
didn't really feel that.
So the
I definitely
pacing
felt
was
that.
an issue for you then, Smokey?
I wouldn't say
Was
the
it?
pacing. I say when they're supposed to when the emotional scenes are supposed to happen, the actors don't seem like they're understanding their like they don't understand the direction they're giving. In a
I kind
way,
of just
like
took that
there's
as,
a
just, having been a teenage girl, just having talked to your friends very casually about some real dark shit. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, so that wasn't an issue for me. It wasn't really something I noticed. I
Yeah,
know
I
that
would. Mhm.
Nancy just jumps right into it with Sarah, like
Yeah,
straight up
immediately.
confronts her about her unaliving attempts. And, teenage girls are pretty frank with each other.
Mhm.
We're pretty brutal.
it's not that the emotion seems wrong.
Makes
It
sense.
seems the actor. To me, it seems like the actor didn't know what emotion to convey properly. That is what I'm
Well,
trying to get across. Like the acting for some emotional beats were definitely off. For me, at
yeah.
least, it was just like you could have done another take for that. Just let them do it a couple of more times. Let them try to get into the actual headspace, because you're not letting them get into the headspace. Obviously, some scenes you're like, okay, let's get this over with. This is a dark subject. One take. Let's go. Let's move on to the next. Which I kind of understand, but again, when it comes to having to convey emotion, I don't think the actor needs to seem confused. But
I
Yeah,
that's
guess that just
and
wasn't something that I picked up on.
we should also mention too that all of our main girls, this is their, like, most of them, this is like their sixth or seventh film that they've ever done. So like, they're relatively like fresh to like acting in general.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I think
I'm not blaming the
our
actors at all. They're pretty good. It's the
sounds like
directions
you
they
were.
were giving. I'm blaming the direction they were giving. Like it doesn't seem like they were given good direction.
Well, I don't know if that opinion is shared by anyone else.
Uh, the yeah. I mean, I didn't really get that from me. Like the main like problems that I have with this film are things that we can mention a little later on, I think. But so now we know these four girls' problems, right? And because of their what is it? Witchcraft, they actually start solving their problems. Um,
Yes, and I also wanted to set up with Chris. Like he seems nice at first. I mean, what surprised me is there's a scene where they're like on a rooftop and just talking, and like he even asks Sarah if he can kiss her instead of just going for it. So I was like, oh, thumbs up,
Consent. Yeah,
consent,
I was like,
yay.
oh, consent. This is cool.
And
Pretty rare for 96, I would say.
very rare, but
Absolutely.
he just completely flips it the next day.
Yeah, well,
Um,
because sometimes what seems like he's trying to go for consent is just manipulation.
yes, I mean we definitely learned that in the next scene that he is just manipulative. I was just surprised, in that scene that like, he even it was even shown asking consent to kiss a girl because that really wasn't like a thing that
At that
media
time,
showed.
definitely not.
Um, so I mean that for me made it even more of a betrayal when the very next day, he tells everybody that Sarah slept with him and that she's a slut, and he was or she was the worst lay he's
Yeah,
ever had.
yeah. It's just like, dude, okay.
And then she tries to confront him, like, hey, why are you saying that? And then he loudly says, like, stop asking me out. It seems so desperate, just so everyone's looking at them.
Yeah, it's gross.
Yeah, and it was both disappointing and realistic that Sarah still wanted him after that. Very disappointing, but not unrealistic for a teenage girl. But
Also,
I
he
mean,
looks
that's
like
to say
Skeet
that
Ulrich, so there's
I is that a good thing or a bad thing?
he was so like the promotion stuff for like Scream when that was coming out. They were saying he's like the next Johnny Depp and all that stuff. And sure, now that sounds disgusting and gross, but at the time, that sounded really cool.
I think he looks very similar to young Johnny Depp.
They got the cat face.
Yeah,
Right,
they
Yeah.
do
Are
have
we
the
talking
cat
about
I mean,
Chris?
I think-
Yes.
We're talking about
Yeah.
Chris.
We're talking about
Yeah.
Chris.
Y'all think he's
He
attractive?
doesn't.
I think he's
No, I didn't say that.
Well, you know what? I happen to find Deputy Dog to be very, very sexy.
I think in this. I think
I mean,
in
I
this
would
movie.
say he's objectively attractive.
He's got the same
No?
nose
Like,
and
that's
eye
not-
structure as Johnny Depp.
I don't think
Is what it
anyone
is.
in this film is legitimately ugly. Just like straight
Right,
up.
right.
No,
Like,
nobody's
it
ugly
doesn't-
in this
I
movie.
mean,
Like none
if
of the
we're
young
talking
people.
on an objective sense, everybody is average, yes, but I wouldn't call Chris attractive. No.
Well,
I think
Man,
I've
I
also
really don't
go
like
to
his
your
hair.
high school.
So, I've had the benefit of, seeing Skeet Ulrich in Riverdale. Anybody else? He's Jughead's dad in Riverdale. He's
Nice.
so much hotter older. He's so much hotter older.
He grew into it.
He grew into it. Yeah.
Ringoed.
As opposed to Johnny
Yeah,
Depp,
Ringoed.
who I am convinced replaced Keith Richards a long time ago, and we've just been fooled.
Yeah,
But I
see
can
that.
definitely see, how he looks like young Johnny Depp to me. He's got a very similar face structure. He was kind of planed out in this movie, like he had stupid hair.
It's
He didn't
also
really have
mid-90s.
he didn't really have like an edge like he did in Scream. I'd
No,
say.
Right.
And
He
also
just
like
seemed like a stupid,
baggy.
shitty guy.
baggy clothes were the way to be also to
Yeah, we,
so
didn't,
like
we didn't get a Covenant ass.
it's very
scene with him.
lumpy. Everybody's lumpy walking around except for the ladies. The ladies
But I will say
dresses were on point.
his part of his he's got a lot of functions in this movie, but part of his function is pushing Sarah toward the Coven because he was, talking shit about him first, and then Sarah saw what an asshole he was, so
Mhm.
that kind of pushes her toward the other girls.
Right.
Yeah.
It makes her an outcast too.
Yes.
So she really has nowhere else to go.
And then the Coven does approach her after seeing the pencil floating or
Mhm.
whatever the hotly debated pencil floating,
Yep.
and and kind of asks her to join them. And I just a little side. So before Chris called her a slut and everything, he invites her to go watch his football practice, and I just wanted to see if y'all thought that his jersey number 86 was a foreshadow. Just
Oh, nice.
for y'all who have worked
Yeah.
in restaurants.
Yeah, I could totally see that. That
I
makes
hope
sense
that's
to me.
intentional. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't catch it, but I hope that was intentional. That'd be really clever and cool.
Yeah, you're gonna have
yeah,
to
because
86
they
the
did
Chris.
they did 86 Chris.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And so now the Coven has their fourth to have the four elements and all that stuff.
Their fourth
the
and
sacred number.
strongest.
Ain't that right,
Mhm.
Spooge?
Yes, it is.
And she is
but-
obviously the strongest.
Yeah, by far. And
She seems to have natural powers that they do not have.
yeah.
Right. And they make it, the filmmakers make a they almost go out of their way to make it known from the get-go that these girls don't want to befriend her. They need her
Right.
to fulfill that role, right? Because, later on when they do turn on her, it's not like they're betraying a friend. They're just like, no, you've outlived your usefulness.
I didn't.
Yeah,
I see
kinda.
that now,
I
but I definitely didn't see that. Because when they were doing like a whole kind of montage and like there's a bunch of scenes of their bonding as friends, like it was very believable to me. I think the main problem is Nancy. She is obviously the leader. She is the most angry and
Disgruntled.
troubled, yeah,
Yeah.
of all of them. And it's kind of that personality was like, whatever I say is what goes. So I
Right.
think
Yes.
Right.
the other two girls
And she's possessed
just,
too.
yes,
In
I
a
mean,
way,
she
like in a
Well, yeah,
negative
we'll
aspect.
get to
she
that.
does get possessed. And I think the other girls are more, I don't want to say henchmen because they both do have their own personalities, but they definitely go along
Mhm.
with what Nancy wants.
Yeah, those.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
wouldn't actually
power
have
is
a
very
huge
corruptible.
problem with the. I wouldn't have a huge problem with the quick turn if they just had a couple scenes that showed Nancy like doing a little bit more manipulation on them. Because I mean, unfortunately, like with that age too, and especially that time, like friends could just like turn on you like that. Especially if you're a new person, like they could just shut you out of the group like
For
that.
sure.
And could go pretty psycho.
It's
I've also just like listened to a lot of true crime things where similar things like this happen where it was like three girls just turning on one and murdering them.
Yeah.
Yes, it has happened to me as a young teenager.
I mean,
No.
it's
It
happened to
does
me
happen.
as well. I
Yeah,
mean,
it happens.
It's this like weird thing where a group wants
It's
to have
groupthink.
you. Yeah, it's why I'm against. It's one of the reasons why I'm a group against group thought. But yeah, the group friends just want to manipulate you for some reason. There's a gain to it. They do have a
Mhm.
motive, but it's some
I
weird
think Nancy
like.
Nancy's just very angry.
Well,
I think
she
Nancy
needed-
also was
she needed
jealous
she
about.
needed
I
all
think
of them
I
for
think
the
Chris
power.
was the first.
If
Yeah.
she didn't have them, then she wouldn't have the power.
Yeah,
But I
because she
Spooge,
wouldn't have been able to call the four elements.
Mhm. But
Spooge, yes.
yes.
I
I
think you're
think
right.
I think Chris was actually like what's the main chick's name again? The main chick.
Sarah.
Sarah being still interested in Chris, I think was the first like contention and the first like block between Nancy and her. Because
Yes.
I mean, it's obviously like later we see that Nancy is obviously still kind of interested in Chris.
Yes, Chris
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Nancy
yeah, well,
have a
yeah.
history. Chris has pretty much, shunned Nancy.
Yeah.
So much that, he both, called her a slut, but like kind of still, tried to say, I have nothing to do with her, even though they used to sleep together.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
he
that's
tried to rehome her right after October, and
yeah.
didn't
And so
take.
no, it did not take. It did
The
not
more
take.
y'all, the more,
So now that
the more y'all are talking, the more I'm like, Chris was attractive. Really?
so now they have their full coven and they have like their full powers and stuff, and so now they are ready to get what they want out of life. And I like this is some of my favorite scenes in the whole film. Like my absolute like really high, well maybe not absolute, but my really high up there is the scene where they're going to their little special area to perform all of this magic that's gonna right all of the wrongs in their own personal worlds and stuff. And they get off the bus and this like old bus driver guy's like, oh, be careful, there's a lot of weirdos out there. And then Nancy turns around and is like, mister, we are the weirdos. And then he just like, his reaction to that is just like appalled and just drives away. And I was like, this is awesome. Like I was having a
the
great
most
time.
memorable line in the movie, right? Like that's
For
the
sure.
one I remember before I revisited it.
Yeah,
This is my
printed,
first watching
that's
of this.
printed, that's printed on the merch.
I think it has to be a small
Right.
reference to like the Weird Sisters too.
Yeah, of course. But so yeah, so Sarah, who still wants to get with Chris, she casts a love spell on him,
Yes, and we should mention the magic shop.
Yeah. So
They
prior.
tried. Someone did a glance around. Someone read one book and didn't retain all the information, but they tried. They tried.
Yeah. So they go to the magic shop, and they get their, it is sorry. It appears that these
I
ladies go
really
in
wouldn't
here all
call
the
it a magic
time,
shop, but-
and they always just like steal things. However, Sarah like outright buys this book, and it's her first interaction with the shopkeep, who she seems like really cool.
Her name is Lirio.
Oh, even better. So she speaks to Lirio, and Lirio says, "Oh, you're a natural witch." Like she can just tell that Sarah's on that like different level than everybody else is. And
Man, I
Super
really
then
gotta
Saiyan.
learn how to balance pencils, man.
there's also in like an over 18 room in the magic shop, and I want to know what's in there really badly. Because I'm
Crystal
assuming it's
dildos.
just well,
That
I'm
was my
assuming
first
it's
thought.
That's
No,
definitely.
I
the
guess my
18
first thought was like
plus.
jarred semen and like jarred blood and like jarred period blood and all that stuff
Yeah,
that
the 18
like
plus
they
room.
use.
Or
You know.
at least an eyeball.
Yeah, or something like
You know,
that. Some type of
something.
fluids.
You know, I'm not gonna lie. It's not a magic shop if it doesn't have at least one crystal dildo for sale. So,
So
it
I'm
will
assuming that's what
automatically-
was in the back room.
It's
Yeah.
automatically
Um,
disqualified if it doesn't have a crystal. You got to have the crystal dildo.
See, growing up in Puerto Rico, I just assumed that all American towns had like a witch shop like this, and I was very disappointed when I finally got here.
A good chunk of them
And-
do.
Yeah, I
Some of
mean,
them
Yeah,
gotta
you know,
find
the
I've
big
one.
never
the big cities do.
I can't say I've ever seen one. I mean, having watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer as a kid, I expected that too because there's a very prominent magic shop.
The town next to me
so-
has one. I mean, it's literally called the Black Cat.
I mean, the
Nice.
state that we live in, I see crystal shops all over the place. But
I
Yeah,
feel
that's
that's going to
Yeah,
be
there
more
are
like
a lot of
astrology
crystal
and,
shops,
and
that is
goop.
true.
That's going to be more goop area than magic.
I can't say I've ever been into one of these, like the 90s presented magic shop.
You're
Yeah, they
definitely
seem
gonna
really
be
awesome.
like a Gwyneth Paltrow wannabe is gonna be in those shops.
You gotta go to Portland,
Yeah, it's true.
Or apparently it is
where the
Puerto
'90s
Rico.
are still. Or Puerto Rico, yeah.
But anyways, so she gets like the book and stuff, and they're down to clown with this witchcraft. And then they proceed to right their wrongs. Sarah casts a love spell on
Do they-
Chris.
do they
Rochelle.
do they say what path of magic we're dealing with? Is this right hand or left hand? Do they
I'm
specify?
assuming
do not
that
specify.
this is left hand path.
But there's no sex
But they do-
involved.
No, well, yeah, but it's also I don't know. I guess I
Would
guess
it be
I could just
chaos
consider
then?
right hand.
Because it
No,
didn't seem
no,
very
but that's why I'm
formulaic.
saying. That's why I'm saying like I guess that's why I'm saying left hand, because like isn't left hand like more organized and
No, right
doing
hand
the
is the-
rituals and stuff.
Right hand magic is white magic. That is the organized, more formulaic, and left hand is mostly black and sexual magic. And chaos
So
magic
then-
is like your free formed modern day
Uh,
magic.
I always thought it was
Sure.
like right was like more like conservative and more like, oh, we don't really talk about what we do, and then left was more free. And like,
Yeah.
oh, just free out information about the magic and stuff. And just
So
willy-nilly,
when
you
it
know.
comes to sex,
I'm
when it
assuming
comes to
left
sex,
because of the
yeah.
love spell.
Mhm.
Like because of the love spell, I'm assuming it's left.
Yeah, that is true. She did cast a love spell.
And then there's also like a glamour
They
and
fucked
stuff
up then.
too. But
They fucked up because there's no sexuality within their ritual whatsoever. And if you're using left hand magic, that's a very important key factor.
so
I would've-
I'd
I
actually
would've
like to
loved
argue
this-
that. I'd
I would
actually
love
like
this
to
to be
argue
a
that.
lesbian movie. where
I'm
They
not saying
switched a
they
little
have
bit.
Yeah,
to
me
have
too.
sex.
Me,
I'm not saying they have
me
to.
too,
They just
Murda.
have to
Me
sexually
too.
charge the ritual. They have to sexually
what-
charge the ritual somehow.
Sure,
That's all
and I'm going
that's
to
all I'm
argue
trying to
that,
say.
and I'm going to argue that point. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to
That-
say I'm going to argue that point because if I can get out my because here is because when they drink the wine, they say, "I take you into me." you know,
Oh, you
the
think
bonding,
it-
the
oh,
bonding
the
of two
v-
bodies with
vor-
with drinking the wine.
Voring magic.
I
Vor magic.
will
oh,
say
you got
also
me, starfish.
so this movie was supposed to, they were aiming for a PG-13 rating. The only reason they didn't get it is because of the subject of witchcraft, which is really stupid. I mean,
There's
it's
so much worse
still
things
illegal.
in it.
but
It's still illegal.
but that is the only reason that they got an R rating. But I'm guessing, if they were going for a PG-13 rating, there's really not that much sex in this movie. There is a rape attempt, which sucks, and it's pretty disturbing to watch, but I can
Yeah.
see it could still be in a PG-13 movie, because it's really not graphic or anything, and it does stop before it's completed. But I'm thinking, maybe this movie, if they were going for an R rating, maybe they could have put more detailed, rituals or involved sex in some way, but just aiming for PG-13, maybe that just wasn't something that they could do.
Yeah.
I mean, then the caveat would be just use right hand magic, but I there's got to be some kind of love thing with right hand magic. There's got to be. But they did do the, you could say the threefold law hit them too, so, and that's more with right hand magic. They needed for me as a magic nut that kind of tiny bit knows his shit when it comes to magic. They needed to specify what magic. I need to know.
I don't think people were as into that or as knowledgeable about that in the 90s.
Yeah,
so
definitely
I don't
not.
think it really mattered. It was okay to be vague. That being said, I mean, they did have a consultant, like a practicing Wiccan consultant on this film. So
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, a
Then
lot
it's
of
got to
it.
be then it's right hand. Wiccan is all right hand.
All right, there you go. You answered your own question.
Your boy.
There you go, you got
answered it. You answered
it. But anyways, they
Maybe
start
different
casting their spells. Rochelle cast probably my favorite revenge that the ladies get. Well, maybe not. I don't know, but I just was really happy to see a very, very racist lady slowly lose all of her hair. And it's just it's like really gross, and she's just like constantly in the showers, like watching her hair fall out,
No
like in
one's
these
helping
public
her.
showers. No one's helping. She's just crying, like all disturbed, like in
I
a
know.
corner, like why is it
I
falling
actually
out?
I have a huge issue with that. There's like a continuity thing because they already established like her friends were seeing this happen, and it was like way later it was even worse, and then her friends came up to her like, "What's going on?" Like they didn't know.
They weren't.
Well,
they were just
they
trying to
might
be
have been
nice.
saying that because that's like the worst bald cap I've ever seen. Like her
I
head
know,
grew
it
3
was-
times its size.
It was
So much
very-
camp. It was good.
When
It
they
was
had her
very
in the shower,
riff-raff.
it looked like Freddy Krueger's
Yeah, it
head.
was very riffraff. Very
Yeah,
riffraff.
or like that skinny Jason Momoa commercial from like 2 Super Bowls ago.
Nice.
I need clarification. Were this all was happening with like the hair falling out and stuff before they were on the beach invoking the spirit, right?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
I'm getting to that
Well,
portion.
didn't they do? Didn't they go off in like the woods and do an initial
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
ritual?
I
that is
was
where
just
we're at
getting-
right now.
I was
Okay.
getting the order. I was making sure I was getting the order right.
Yeah, and so Bonnie, who is covered in burn scars, she wishes for them to go away, or she casts a spell for them to go away. And actually, I really like this one too, simply because all I could think about is Goldmember. Because there's a scene later where like one of the girls is touching her back, and just like this huge like skin chunk just comes off, and like in my mind, I was just like, oh, that's a keeper, like like total Goldmembering it,
Yes.
like when I was watching the skin come off.
Ooh, hello. What do we hear? That's a keeper. Yes. Put it in the skin box, please. Fishy eyes. I'm peeling.
Because I'm
Gotta stop her
gross.
from eating it.
Yeah, save me from myself.
Quickly, thank you. Saves me from myself.
But So one thing that we find, so all three of these ladies get their spells off. Nancy only wishes to be as powerful as their deity, Manon, or Manoon, or however
That's all
they
she
say it.
wants, just to have the full power of her deity.
hmm Um, and so Nancy later on, she goes back to her house, and this is where we don't get like full, like clear shot sexual abuse by her stepfather. However, we do, like, there's a continuing thing going on because the mom specifically states, like, would you just leave her alone? You're always after her. And like, because he
Yeah.
tries to pull up her skirt. Um,
You're getting really Ronnie Dangerfield from Natural Born Killers vibes.
yeah, definitely. And then she goes to her room, and he starts, assaulting his wife. Nancy, like, loses it and charges back out there, and all of this magic power is happening, and it causes the stepfather to get a heart attack. And he
So
subsequently dies.
I just want to say what I kind of like about this, since this is before they are on the beach invoking the spirit. All of these things, it does not prove that their magic is working. It does, I
Nope.
mean, so, hair falling out, it's all definitely coincidental. Like, hair falling out could be anything. She's on the
She
swim
could just be
team.
using a
Maybe
bad hair product.
she's on the swim team. Maybe she's having a reaction to the chlorine.
Yep.
The Bonnie, is already getting treatments for her skin, like experimental treatments. So that could just be working. Nancy's stepfather could just be like unhealthy.
I mean, he is unhealthy. Look at him.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he's
He's got a
overweight and
beer gut,
drunk.
everything. But I think what matters with this is whether or not, the magic is working. A lot of magical thought is about it putting your intentions out. So whether or not true magic is at work, their intentions are definitely being heard.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
they're
definitely.
definitely putting enough negative energy out into the universe for it to have some effect, because they get it again. The threefold law equates to them. They get every negative and positive energy that they put out into the universe. They get back 3 times back on them. So
The
the
only one
girl
I will
starts
say
losing their
that,
hair and everything.
it
And
it points towards working is the love spell, which is from the obviously most powerful, like the real witch.
Right. And they actually kind of use Chris as like a slave for a day, which is pretty great.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
all of
pretty
his
fun.
friends are, yeah, I was enjoying that while that was going on. So they go back to the magic shop, and now that, her stepfather has had a heart attack, well, he had a life insurance policy, so now Nancy and her mom don't have to live in a actively leaking, no lights on trailer. They now get to live in a high rise. They've got money, and she buys a book called The Invocation of the Spirit, which leads us into our third act.
Beach scene.
Yep, beach scene.
Yeah, this was the best scene, I think. One of the best
Yeah,
scenes.
yeah, it was awesome. So Nancy and the girls all research, what they need to do, all of their get all their familiars, all that kind of stuff, and they are ready to invoke the spirit of Manon.
And can I just, little aside from IMDb here, it says in the scene where the 4 girls arrive at the beach to invoke the spirit, they each carry an animal that represents themselves or their wants. Rochelle carries a clownfish. Her passion is diving, which she can't enjoy as long as her bully is, goading her.
Oh, that's cool.
Bonnie carries a butterfly. It represents the beauty and adoration she has longed for after being ignored or seen as a monster, which I don't know if she really has. She sees herself that way for sure.
Yeah.
Sarah carries a lovebird. That's obviously her desire for Chris. And Nancy carries a snake, symbolic of rebirth, transformation, and immortality.
also
Yeah,
foreshadowing. Also
Yes.
foreshadowing. That
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
the
more
cla-
snakes
the-
to come.
that she is sinister as well.
And
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
see what they did with
Classic
these
Ouroboros.
animals.
Also, gotta point out, all of these animals are like the easiest to handle on a movie set.
Yeah,
Yeah.
also that.
I think that was intentional. I think it was more that they have to set them free into the elements because we do see them like letting, or well, we at least see Nancy let the snake out. We
Okay,
don't
I was wondering
necessarily
what happened
see.
to them. I didn't know if they were about to be
I
sacrificed
thought they were
or what.
sacrificing them, but
Yeah,
I
I guess
That's
they
what I
didn't,
thought,
which
too.
I like. I'm glad they didn't sacrifice them.
Yeah, I didn't want to see like a bird like getting thrown into the fire pit or the snake
I
or
didn't want to see that either.
a clownfish. You know,
Imagine if one of your wants required a chimpanzee. That'd be a mess.
Oh, I would not be able to even do that. I'm so terrified of them.
think about the
Rightfully
budget.
so, they're terrifying
The
animals.
budget.
Yeah.
You know how hard
Yeah.
it is gonna to train that fucking
Sacrifice you.
chimpanzee just to
I-
walk.
I will also say there's like a weird occurrence during this time parameter from like 1990 to like 1999 where there was like non-stop chimps in films
There's
or
a lot
like
of chimp
films
movies.
about like monkeys or apes or chimps, and so I'm glad that they didn't do that. But anyway, so they invoke the spirit, and all of the waves start crashing, things start going
Mhm.
crazy, and we actually have some cool production on this, right, Murda?
Yeah. So the crew had to return to the location at a second time to complete filming. They kept being interrupted by several occurrences that even caused their witch consultant to be like, "What the fuck is happening?" So as the fog rolled in at midnight, the four actresses used real Wiccan rites and language to invoke powerful forces. Then, as Nancy attempts to invoke the deity Manon, a flock of bats hovered over the set while they were doing that, and they had to stop filming because this flock of random bats were just hovering over them in real life. And
Cause-
the tides kept rising like drastically and just like crashing. They extinguished all their candles. And it kind of was like whenever they would stop and then try to start again, then the intensity of the waves would escalate each
I
time.
I have the perfect explanation for all of this.
Well,
It's
I'm not
a
done.
sim-
Hold on.
No,
Hold-
hold on. It's,
say
it's
Hold
a
on,
simple.
hold on,
Hold
hold
on.
on, hold on, hold
Okay.
on, hold on.
It's a simple sentence.
Okay, what is it?
They fucked around, and they found out.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, they're using real Wiccan language, real rights. So one of the things, like, the deity Mena is fictional that they use in this movie, but there is a Gaelic god of the sea, Manannan. So it's very similar to that name. So as they were saying Manon, like maybe and the sea was
Wires got
rising.
crossed.
Yeah, wires got crossed, and they were putting real energy out into the world.
Never cross the
Um,
streams.
Yeah.
I feel
So
like a better
and
director would have filmed those bats instead of
I
just
thought the same
stopping for the
Absolutely.
day,
thing. I thought the
right?
same
Absolutely.
thing.
It's so
Yeah,
cool.
like,
It's
all
such an
this
awesome
stuff that's
that in
happening,
there.
thing.
that's free special effects, man.
Yeah.
But right when Nancy said her line,
Kubrick wouldn't have cared about the rabies.
yeah, no, he
No,
wouldn't have.
no, not
They-
at all.
But
There
right
must have
right
been
as
like an actual like reasoning why they couldn't film with the bats being over.
yeah,
like,
I mean maybe it
rabies.
was reactions of the actresses. But right as Nancy said, Manon, film me, they completely lost power in all their equipment.
Oh, that's sick.
Oh wow,
That's sick.
that's
That's
pretty
what
cool.
happens when you
So-
fuck around.
So I mean that scene was like, it was a really good scene to watch, and like I really like hearing that there was some true energy behind that scene. And I would love to see the outtakes where there's fucking bats just accosting them.
That's
Yeah,
true,
that'd
but
be really
they're
cool.
super lucky that's all they get. Like they They obviously was fucking with some energy that they were not supposed to be.
Yeah, and also to Omi's point, that's why there's like all those shots of the waves just crashing. Like that was actually happening like pretty aggressively to
Like
them.
that's a pretty bad omen. You got
You
a
know,
flock of
well,
bats.
maybe, when they came back to film it a second time, maybe the day that they were trying to film it, there was some power in that day. I don't know exactly what day they were trying
Maybe
to film
they
it.
planned to film
Yeah.
it like during a bat migration, so there couldn't be any bats. That would be that would
Oh,
be so
man.
fucked up if they did, but the bats still showed back up.
But yeah, so that's just, some background about that scene, which
Yeah,
I
and the,
think adds some power to the
oh,
movie.
absolutely. Absolutely. And actually, I really love the parallel between them losing all power because in the film, Nancy gets shocked with lightning. Like she gets struck by lightning. And this now gets us into our maybe 3.5, close to 4 here of acts of this film, because now that they have done this, they are starting to realize there may be negative consequences to all of their actions that they have
But they
Well,
done.
do
Sarah
wake up
is
and
the only
see
one.
they see Nancy literally walking on water. So now there's really no question of, is there real magic at work?
Yeah, yeah, that too. Definitely that. um,
And a bunch of dead sharks.
yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
they
and
see
she
they fucked around and they found out so hard.
But Nancy is thrilled about the dead sharks. She sees them as a gift
gifts.
from her deity.
Yeah. Um, so we'll start with Bonnie and maybe like progressively like lead this up to the most intense part because as a spoiler for everyone, I know we've mentioned it, but we are getting to the part with the sexual assault here. So Bonnie starts becoming pretty narcissistic, constantly caring about her looks and stuff, and all of the girls tease her, but like maybe kind of even goes beyond teasing a little bit of kind of slut shaming her, because she just like any type of any male interaction, she is about it.
Yes,
And
and she was shown as pretty caring to her friends before, and now she's just
mhm,
like very into herself.
yeah. Um, Rochelle, she finds Laura just absolutely traumatized and, actively going bald, sobbing hysterically.
Which I see no problem with this.
Yeah, no, me
None.
me either,
None.
She
I
got what she
mean,
deserved.
with modern medicine, it can be easily fixed with something called
She, she
plug.
got
So
she got what she deserved.
I mean, it's
and against like Sarah's better judgment, she decides to she goes to the magic shop herself, and she asks the lady, I'm trying to figure out how to like stop a love spell. And the lady's like, well, once it's cast, it's done. This is where we find out that threefold will return to them, and this is also where we learn that, well, if it's a love spell, you just have to let it play out. So Chris has constantly been calling Sarah and like trying to get next to her house and like all this stuff, like actively, clear,
Stalking her,
unhinged stalking
harassing.
behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah, stalking and harassing. And so she,
I had a partner in high school that did that. Very scary. Very scary.
Yes.
Sorry.
To just get a knock on your window, look outside, and boom, there they are.
Yeah, that's what I said. I mean,
It's
a
like,
lot
hey,
of this,
I was sick.
a lot of this is realistic to teenage experience.
So Chris, you know, basically tells her one night that like, I wake up and I only ever think about you, like all this stuff, and later that day, they have a phone conversation. He really wants to take her to a dinner date, and she, kind of reluctantly agrees because she's like, well, I have to let this play its course. And they drive up, they drive to like the scenic overlook
Make out
in
point.
Chris's car. Yeah, make out point. And she just straight questions Chris of like, aren't we going to dinner? Like, what is this? Like, she's not sure what's happening. I'm not gonna like get super into the details of this scene just because it's like really rough. Um, but he tries to kiss her and stuff, and she's like not down. She just is like really wanting him to realize like, hey, maybe you're only feeling this way because like I have I'm not interested in
Yeah,
you anymore,
she
and
tries
like
to tell him like, why do you think that you feel this way? Like, where is this even coming from? Like, just think about it for a second.
yeah, and and I think that's like you know pretty good words of wisdom there. They went on like maybe one like kind of half date thing, and then he went around telling the whole school that she was a terrible lay.
Yeah, she's
So
trying to say
like,
like, are these feelings even your own, or like,
yeah.
is
The
something?
Barbie ending gone wrong.
And anyways, so things physically escalate. Chris gets violent with her, tries to pin her and stuff, and it doesn't work out, thankfully. And she bolts away, gets away from him, and she goes and meets back up with the Coven, and she explains everything that's happened to her. Um, that's where we find out that the girls can now cast glamours on themselves actively. And Nancy um, watches them do it and stuff. And Nancy says, no, we have to teach him a lesson. And I got really hyped here because I was like, oh, yeah, this dude's finally going to get his
Yeah,
comeuppance.
for
He's going to
real.
get like flayed or like emasculated, or like things being detached, decapitation. I was like, my mind was racing with thoughts of revenge, and I was like really excited for it. Um, that's not what happens, and this
Unfortunately,
is where like
Does anything happen to Chris? Nothing
yeah,
happens
he
Yep,
to
gets killed.
Chris.
I mean, Nancy
he
does kill
dies.
him.
He
Yeah,
does.
Nancy kills him.
Nancy
How does
does
he?
kill him, but
How does?
she floats him out a window pretty much.
Yeah, yeah. So
But before she does that, she does something very disappointing.
yeah, so she decides that she's going to go to the party where Chris is with the glamour of Sarah.
Well, first she tries to, sleep with him as herself, as
Hmm.
Nancy. He rejects her, which, if we're talking about a love spell saying, oh, he couldn't control himself. Yes, he could. Um,
Yep.
he he still could control himself because he, understands consent here, and he tells Nancy no several times.
Yeah, and I do think they make a good like point of like, saying like male consent is more important essentially than female consent, like with this short sequence. Like I think they do a good job with that. Um, but then she glamours into Sarah and
Sleeps with him.
sleeps with him. And Sarah, trying to stop Nancy from doing something reckless, barges in on
I
him.
I
And
know I shouldn't be. I know this shouldn't be. Did Nancy just technically cut Queen herself?
I mean, I think she
yeah,
technically
yeah, in a way, yeah,
I mean, she
technically sexually assaulted him as well.
yeah,
So that's it's a. I'm
It
gonna
was
say
a
yeah,
that's an L
strange. It
for
was
Nancy. That's an L for Nancy.
yeah. I
yeah.
didn't
It's a
I
hard L
didn't
for
like I
Nancy.
didn't like any of this. I didn't
Yeah,
like
it
any
was,
of this at all. Besides
it
him
was,
dying, but
yeah,
I
it
mean,
was
I
a
didn't.
terrible choice.
Yeah,
Terrible
this kind of
choice.
goes back to what I was saying at the beginning about like who is this movie for?
Yeah, like
Because it
I
it
didn't
seems
understand
like
this.
such a weird like out of character thing to do
I think this was supposed
at
to
this
be
point.
for the parents to go, see, that's why you don't be a Satanist. This is why. It's bad. It's bad.
Although,
Maybe.
they're not Satanists in the movie, and they make a point to say that we are not Satanists.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, but
They do.
you know that parents don't care. Parent. The
Yeah.
second, the
I mean,
second they
they've
heard
still got
this
an
movie
R
was The
rating just
Craft.
for witchcraft. Yeah. So yeah, at the time, Satanic Panic was still, we're on the tail end of it there.
Yeah, and this is also where we get the first like real open confrontation betwixt Nancy and Sarah, because you know with Sarah barging in on them in the middle of the act, Chris freaks out, like jumps up, and Nancy changes back to Nancy, starts laughing at him and stuff, and it's like, oh, it was fine when I was her, and accuses Nancy
She
of
does
being
have
jealous
she
of
does have
Sarah.
a good line of her screaming at him, like the, "Oh, you're sorry? He's sorry." Like I did like that,
Mhm.
but yeah.
Yeah, and then as Murda mentioned, she then uses her power to throw him out a window, to which he falls like, I don't know, 35, 40 feet onto concrete. So he's
Yeah, he
done.
did.
So,
And
yep,
we didn't
Chris
see a
got
shot of him in the
86'd.
hospital. I could have swore we
Nope.
saw
No.
of him in the
No,
No,
hospital.
he's just
he
dead.
died.
We get a funeral shot,
Yep.
Damn.
or at least them. Yeah, in the I think there's a funeral shot where they're
Yeah.
all in black at his funeral.
I must be
Yeah, they
mixing
are.
the Covenant and the Craft up because I know we get a couple of hospital
We
shots in the
did
Covenant.
watch it, right by each other. So yeah.
At this point, there is open hostility between Nancy and Sarah realizes that Nancy has killed 2 people already. And, she is
3 people.
3 people. Yeah, that's right.
We didn't even talk about the snake guy.
No, we didn't talk about Snake
Oh,
Guy.
that's right.
Was
I
Snake
forgot
Guy
all
even
about
real?
that
I don't
dude.
think Snake Eye was real.
Well, that was still
Snake Eye was
under
real.
well, Snake Eye was real, but that was kind of still under, like, is this magic or did he just get hit in LA traffic?
Yeah, but essentially the Coven, they kind
I
of
forgot about Snake Guy.
they made a
You want
huge
to see the
truck.
snake?
Yeah, they made a huge truck run over this guy that was like, "No, I have the snake. He needs to talk to you."
I mean,
Like, talk to him.
he was chasing the girls and harassing them.
Yeah, it was very
Hey,
unpleasant.
you can't be chasing anybody with fucking snakes. Alright?
You can't,
I'm
you can't be running out into LA traffic. So
Like I wholeheartedly
Um,
understand.
Played out
Yeah,
like
and then-
that. Oh, sorry. Go on.
No. Play it like what? I want to know. You gotta land it. You gotta land it.
I was just saying, played it out like that YouTube prankster that got shot. He was,
Oh,
shoving
shit.
that
Oh,
in that
yeah.
guy's face.
he
Oh,
didn't die
no.
though. At least
He didn't. There was another prankster that did a similar situation.
yeah.
That doesn't surprise me. What they'll do for views.
Comedy.
Yeah. But anyways, so Sarah starts like trying to cast all these binding spells on Nancy from, prevent her from killing any more people. And she is no longer hanging out with the Coven. And that is when we get one of the coolest scenes of the entire film. The trio of ladies invade Sarah's dreams, and like it's a really cool shot, like classic, like witch coming to haunt your dreams. Essentially, like they're floating, they look all like decrepit and decayed and gnarly and stuff. Looks really cool. And Sarah wakes up, and that's when we get literally millions of scorpions, snakes, rats, spiders, roaches, all kinds of stuff just like flooding her house.
I was okay until the roaches.
Yeah, the roaches were pretty gnarly. It was those little tiny ones that are all fast.
Oh God.
Also, while this is going on, she finds that her parents have left for a flight, and that plane has crashed. So now she is an orphan.
Now she can be Batman.
Yep. Yeah, pretty much. Magical Batwoman. And so then the Coven show up, and they pretty much just like absolutely destroy her with words and with magic and with illusion and all this stuff, and she gets pretty close to actually committing suicide again.
Well,
Which I wanted to mention this when we first talked about the unaliving plot line, but the actress Robin, is it Tooney
Robin
or Tunney?
Tooney, I think Tooney.
Tooney.
Tooney. So in a row, this is her second character she's playing that is suicidal, because in Empire Records, she also plays a character with that subplot.
Oh, geez.
And yeah, and in fact, they filmed back to back because she wears a wig throughout this entire movie. Her head was shaved for
Oh,
Empire Records
huh.
the entire time, so that's not her real hair.
That's
Oh,
crazy.
That's why it
pretty
was so
sweet.
easy to change the hair color.
Yeah, yeah, exactly,
So
exactly.
that's why.
Okay. um, but yeah, and so Nancy is actually the one that slashes her wrists, but then she's like,
Yeah.
"Now go run upstairs," and she proceeds to run upstairs,
To make it
and
look like a suicide, and Nancy writes the note that says I killed Chris, Sarah.
yep, um, and Nancy's like tired of waiting, and sends Rochelle and I had the
Bonnie.
yeah, Bonnie, thank you. Sends Rochelle and Bonnie up there to go check on her. And we, as she's like, getting close to death, essentially of bleeding out, um, her mom kind of like visits her, which is really cool. Um, and so she's like, "Oh wait, like I don't like this is all illusion, like this is all fake, like I can
Yes. And I don't
change
want to
this."
I don't mean to interrupt, but before this happened, she did go to the shopkeeper, um, and for help in fighting Nancy, or what to do about Nancy. And the shopkeeper does tell her, you are a natural witch. You have to invoke the power. Like, Mena is not good or evil. Nancy is just using the power for evil. Um, the the spirit is not good or evil. So you need to invoke the spirit to become powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, and
So that's what she does as she is fading away.
yeah, yeah, and by doing this, she immediately gets glamours on Bonnie and Rochelle that they look hideous. With Bonnie having like all of her hair being like
Yeah,
removed
she
and
got the riffraff
stuff.
hair.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
the wig cap has
I
changed
I
heads.
have I have something
um,
that I have personal thing. Like, is that Sarah casting glamours on them, or has the magic
Yes.
already reversed on them and they've cast it? They
It was
unknowing
glamorous.
subconsciously
They only see it in
casted
the
the
mirror.
glamours on themselves.
Yeah.
yeah,
They
no, it
only
was
see it in the
glamours.
mirror. Yeah.
It
Well,
was
yeah.
glamours that Sarah cast on
Well,
them.
when it comes to magic, you can use mirrors to reveal your true looking self.
But if
Like
they had
when
looked
Actually,
at each other in that moment, they could have been like, "No, your face is not scarred up, and no, you don't have a riffraff hair."
and actually, I actually kind of give points to your point though, Smokey. That also I think that could be the same. I think it could be Sarah using the Manon or whatever the fuck to kind of like bring that threefold
yeah.
into.
Oh,
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 lost
Oh
audio
oh,
no.
on Spooge for a
oh!
sec.
Into what?
We got
Into
the
It could
what?
be both. I
threefold.
was trying to say.
We got the three. I heard threefold.
Sorry. um, I'm trying to think. Where a threefold fucking yeah. I think that Sarah could have been like a tool in that too from Manon to like bring the threefold about.
Yeah.
So it could be both as
I
well.
did still see it as glamours.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah. I think it was glamours too, but like maybe
May
who
I?
knows? They could see that permanently. Maybe anytime they see them look in the mirror, they didn't seem like that at the end. They didn't seem like horrified like that. They just lost their powers.
yeah,
I guess I'm jumping ahead there.
yeah.
Yeah, but it seems
Um,
like all the magic was reversed at the end. Like
Yeah.
pretty much all the badness they did was pretty much done and over with.
Mm. Yeah, so that's what I was saying. Like the threefold though can just be like a temporary fucking torture that you.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows? It's semantics.
but yeah, and now we get the some like cool because of the twists and turns it takes, but we get the final confrontation.
The witch
Uh,
fight.
Yeah, we get a witch fight between Sarah and Nancy, and it's pretty cool because it's just like them like making different illusions and in their minds, and we're like an outside perspective, kind of seeing like both of them happening at the same time. Um,
It
and
reminded me a lot of the Doctor Strange versus Doctor Strange fight in Multiverse of Madness. Like
Oh yeah.
they're just sending shit at each other and like making each other fly into walls and stuff. And
Yeah, it was a pretty
it
good
it,
fight.
it was a very Sam Raimi-esque fight, and I liked it a lot.
Same.
yeah, it's super fun. Uh, Ultimately, Sarah prevails, um, and then
She's
proceeds.
able to bind her.
Yep, she's able to bind Nancy now, and so Nancy can no longer cause any type of harm at all, with magic. Maybe with physical, we don't really know. After this fight, we get a scene of Nancy in a psych ward, strapped to a bed, and her just raving about like, no, it was real, it all happened, I could
I can
fly, I could do all
fly.
this stuff, I can fly, and then nurse comes in and gives her a sedative, and then we kind of pan out, her face is like all scarred up, and she looks very deranged. um
They didn't do too good on the scars. The scars kind of looked like Party City scars that they got.
yeah,
The
I mean,
scars did
it-
not look good.
She-
Some of
she
them
got
looked like they
the,
were Sharpie.
She got the Riddler and was it Batman Forever? Like, when he's in
yeah,
the insane asylum at the end, and
Yeah.
he's like, "I know who Batman is. I'm Batman." Like,
I mean, you didn't think that was a star-studded performance from Jim Carrey?
I mean,
I love that
I loved
performance.
it.
Don't get me started.
I love that film.
I'm
I have
a
a poster
I'm
of
a
Jim Carrey as the
defender.
Riddler.
I'm a defender of that movie.
That it's
So
actually
back in the day, I used to work at a bar, and every night I would play "Kiss from a Rose" and give an introduction that it was the best and most sensitive of all the Batmans.
We
Yes.
actually we used some Jim Carrey Riddler audio for our God tier films.
yeah, that's what I was
Nice.
gonna say. I
Yeah,
was gonna put that up.
Yeah, it's great. But yeah, and then we flash forward to the next day. We got Bonnie and Rochelle, kind of approaching Sarah, and like at first, because of the way that they're talking to her, it seems like they actually wanted to reconcile a friendship now that Nancy was out of the picture. But turns out, nope. What actually happens is they're just trying to figure out if Sarah still has powers or not. And she's like, well, I would just say, watch your back and stuff, and they kind of smirkedly are like, I bet she doesn't even have powers, to
Yeah.
which she just like stares them down and like makes a tree limb fall like right next to them, which I thought was great. And then
Can I
she
do a
warns
bit here?
them.
Can I do a bit here?
Yeah.
Do a bit.
After this scene, those two ladies, one proceeds to be part of a murder mystery plot, Wild Things, and another goes fucks their good and half baked.
Nice.
Your boy.
You'll so she warns them, don't end up like Nancy, and then,
oh no, we know their
that's
future.
that.
I just said their future.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're right. But anyways, and then that's where we wrap. That's the end of the film.
Yeah, so they all got their powers stripped except for Sarah, because Sarah was the only one who did not abuse Menon's powers.
Yeah, and it was really awesome the way that it kind of played out in the end there.
So Sarah just gets to be powerful as fuck, but she doesn't have any interest in abusing the power.
She did go through a hero's journey, so
yeah,
she earned it.
Yeah, she did.
She
Yeah.
She did
seized
earn
the
it.
sword.
She came out for the better, and yeah, her parents did not die. That was a glamour from Nancy. So she gets to keep her parents.
Yeah, no
Yay!
being Batman for her.
Yeah. But I mean, she's gone through enough trauma, you know. She's got other things that she can be a hero off of.
Oh yeah, definitely. Um,
But
and then
is she
we can.
really? I mean, we saw what she's gonna use her magic for, so we already know it's just gonna be like a huge waste.
I mean, I would say that she's smart enough not to do a love spell again.
Oh yeah, definitely. No, she learned her lesson.
I mean, we'd
pretty
have to
hard
watch.
with that.
We'd have to watch the Craft Legacy to actually know. Do they reprise their
Is-
roles for the Legacy?
I was
I
gonna say,
don't
is anyone
know.
actually in that movie?
I've not seen that.
Yes,
I-
I can answer that.
I know that
So
it's got 4 people in it again.
I don't
yeah,
think that they reprise their roles.
Firuza Balk does show up, but it's only in cameo.
So no.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, we.
they do not
I
reprise.
don't know what that film's about. I have not read
I
about
don't
that
know.
film, and I've not
How
seen
is
it.
it related to the craft? That's-
Don't know. You got Google there. Why don't you see?
Yeah.
Daughters of
I'll
Craft.
have to. It probably is like their daughters or something.
Yeah. I mean, I could
That's
see it
probably
being
gonna
that.
be. That's always it's always either that or they're looking for their children for some fucking reason.
One little, you know, trivia fact I like here, in the shooting script as well as the early edits of the film, it's implied that only Sarah has actual magic powers, and the other girls' abilities are merely a result of their leeching off of Sarah's magic.
Oh,
I mean, that's
I
what
love
I
that.
kind of took from
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So I
I
guess
And-
you
mean,
know
I would
that.
call Nancy a psychic vampire. She would.
Well,
she's
I
like
think
Raven.
probably until they invoke Menon, they are just leeching off of Sarah. Sarah's powerful enough to lend them some magic.
Yeah, I also it wasn't until just now when you were saying that she didn't lose her power because she didn't abuse it that even occurred to me. I just assumed that it was because she was a natural witch and they weren't.
Yeah, that could also be too. They
Yeah,
they
yeah, that makes sense.
they weren't real witches until Sarah joined the coven.
Did they go
Right,
into
right.
like why she's a natural? Like, does she have a history in her family or something like that? Did they mention any of that whatsoever? Like, is she
No.
from
Don't know.
Salem or
I
something?
thought-
Like,
I thought
how-
there was
they
like
mentioned
a
something with her mom.
yeah.
no?
I think there was a throwaway line about her mom possibly being, but it wasn't like
her mom seemed normal to me.
They didn't. Well, that
Well,
was her stepmom.
That's her stepmom.
Yeah, her
Oh,
real
I
mom
didn't-
died
we
in
didn't-
childbirth.
Oh, I did not know that.
Her real mom
Yeah,
died in childbirth.
When did they state that? I completely missed that line.
Well, that's
I'm
why it was
pretty sure it's-
kind of some throwaway lines. Like they didn't
Yeah.
really go very in
There's some
depth
things
about
they
that.
might have been better off showing instead of telling.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah,
You
definitely.
know, it would have made sense to like flat out say like, "Oh, your mom also had powers." So,
Right.
But
Yeah.
I didn't.
So
I didn't
here's something
see-
interesting. Firuza Balk, while she was doing research, she kept going to some magic shop in Hollywood, and she ended up buying it. Like she owns it to
Oh.
this day, I guess.
Oh,
yeah.
that's awesome.
So that was a real magic shop they went to?
Well,
I don't know if
ma-
that's the one
maybe
that they
not
used for
that one.
filming, but she bought like a pretty popular one in Hollywood, I guess.
so I guess all these magic shops are just in California.
Yeah, it makes
Yeah,
sense.
only in California. Still.
That
Yeah,
means they're not even real. They're just
That's
Gwyneth
that's where
Paltrow people.
that's where Sunnydale was too in Buffy.
Yep.
They're
Yeah.
Yeah.
smelling,
Yep.
they're selling some smelly candles and shit like that.
Yeah, totally.
It's very.
I've been to
appropriately
plenty of
named.
places that have sold crystal dildos. I've seen them.
I've seen
Yeah,
them too.
I've seen them too.
If I'm not mistaken, they're at the Black Cat.
They're
one of
they're
the
always
many
at the
places.
mineral show that we go to here too.
Yeah, they are. So some production stuff for this one. Budget of 15 million. Box office it made 55.6 million. So
Did it? I
fairly
had a
successful.
different figure here.
Oh, did you?
This one says worldwide gross is 24 million.
Oh, that's a pretty large discrepancy.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
And what I
um,
will say is, I think if they had gotten that PG-13 rating, this movie would have done a lot better. Every teenage girl would have gone to see this and been obsessed with it.
yeah,
True,
definitely.
true. But
And they did
Oh,
get to see
100%.
it later, but if it was open to a wider audience, I bet they would have done a lot better monetarily.
or they could have just, since they were already going to get the R rating, they could have just leaned into it. Maybe that would have also made it more successful.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Instead of trying
It's-
to fight that R rating and trying to be desperately trying to get the PG-13, because it's blatantly obvious. I thought this was a PG-13 film. Like it's blatantly obvious that's what they were going for.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
if they
it
just
should have
leaned
been.
into the rating instead, the film wouldn't have felt conflicted. That's my main, everything feels like it's fighting itself in this.
Yeah, and
Like the
and
only
this
thing,
this film definitely does have a cult following now, and I'm
Yeah.
sure had a big
Oh,
following with a
100%.
certain audience, when it came out.
Oh,
For sure.
definitely.
Yeah, I mean,
Definitely.
it was like we were mentioning before, like it inspired an entire generation afterwards. This is
sure.
like this is one of those like weird cult movies that is on like goth girls like top 5,
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
this,
yeah,
like
definitely.
this and Queen of the Damned for no fucking reason I can understand.
Which is why I was disappointed in the
Accurate,
turn
Omi.
it took, because I thought this was going to be, this is the iconic goth witchy girl 90s film. So I thought that, they were going to stay empowered the whole time and not turn on each other because of a fucking boy.
Right?
Yeah.
That was
Right? It's
tiring.
that's why
And
I think Rochelle has the best subplot of the 4.
Yeah,
Like
Yeah.
she
agreed.
has a racist bully. She seems the most justified. I was most sad to see her become like a villain really quickly.
Yeah,
Yeah, same.
and what I do should mention too is, like, as kind of progressive as that plot is for the 90s, the way that Rachel True was treated in real life, completely
Oh, yeah.
negates
Yeah.
that subplot, because she, wasn't invited to rap parties and she wasn't invited to the MTV Movie Awards. They didn't fucking invite her. She's a main character in this
Dang.
movie.
Oh yeah.
I think, and I don't know that it was like intentional, like, no, we're not going to invite her, or just the, ingrained racism that she's just invisible to,
I mean,
that.
I
I don't
mean,
know.
Hollywood-
90s
It
maybe
is the-
systemic.
yeah, the
Like, I
90s
could see it being
Hollywood
more of a
in the 80s
systemic
and
issue.
90s wasn't they weren't too kind to
Oh, not at all.
people of color at all.
No.
Especially in like horror movies, like whereas horror movies, especially slashers, do a lot for the argument of empowering women that a lot of other genre movies did not do. They still treated minorities like absolute dirt, and that was in real life and in plot lines.
Yeah.
Right. And that's
So
actually something I
disappointed.
was going to touch on
I
is
wanna
like
step
the
back a
trope.
little. I think I could defend her, like both her and Bonnie's, like character shift though, because Nancy does seem to, even though she's not as powerful as Sarah, Nancy does seem to have a bit more of a understanding of the magic that she's using. She could be possessing them too, to be doing her bidding, because they don't seem like they were 100% for Nancy afterwards either. Like
Yeah, and we all know that
wrote her off
that
really fast.
all know that ringleader person that people are just going to follow, and
Yeah.
it makes sense that it's Fairuza Balk because she's absolutely, the best actress to watch in this movie.
Oh yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
watching it for her out of all
yeah,
And
the
she's
actresses.
definitely like pulling from like Heathers and this
Oh
predated
yeah.
like Mean Girls and
mhm,
stuff, but it was it's that ilk, right? It's that Queen
yeah,
Bee
with the
kind
guff
kind
tint.
of
yeah,
stereotype
de-
And she
with
has
yeah,
that
exactly. It's a little
she's got
spooky
that
in it.
real life charisma too that like makes you want to watch her, and if you knew her, you'd probably want her to like you.
Right,
yeah,
right.
yeah, and so something
It's
interesting
like a
with
natural charisma.
Yeah.
yeah, and something interesting with Feruza specifically, uh, 85 other actresses were screen tested for these main roles of these
Damn.
four ladies, and some of the most notable amongst them is Angelina Jolie, Scarlett Johansson, and Alicia Silverstone. Um,
Ooh, maybe Angelina could have done it, but not the others.
See, I could see Angelina, especially because this is around the time that Hackers came out.
Yeah,
yeah,
I
So
think she
like
could have
that,
done it. Alicia Silverstone and Scarlett Johansson, not for Nancy.
They would have
like
definitely
how old
filled
was
the
Scarlett
theater though.
Johansson around this time though?
I don't know. She must have been real young.
Yeah.
yeah, she
Like
would have been very
I was like,
young.
one of these is not like the others.
Yeah,
Yeah.
how old is she? She was born in 84. That doesn't make sense. She would have been
Yeah, no freaking
14 or
way.
something? 12?
15,
I
Oh.
mean,
15?
she could.
15. She would have been
Was
Okay,
15.
she could have been a child? She's a child
I,
actor, isn't she? I could have swore she was.
Yeah, but no one else
Yeah,
is a
yeah,
child
she
actor.
was.
Everyone else is 20 in this.
No,
yeah,
she would have been
exactly. She
fucking
would have just looked.
This movie came out in 96. She was born in 84. She would have been
Yeah,
She would have
no
been
12.
way.
11 years old. Maybe if they were
That's wild.
they should have went with 13-year-olds. I guess they would have gave them a fucking 13.
No.
I think it
One
works.
guy
I
just
think
finished
it works
waiting.
better as seniors, honestly. If we're gonna have to choose, I don't want.
I
I
Who
don't
the
love
want
heck was the
how
freshmen for
casting
those.
director
that
for
they
this
did,
movie? Is
but
he a perv? Is he gross?
I don't know.
Who is he?
I said,
Gross?
who's the casting director of this movie? Is he gross?
Probably
Is he
because he is a casting director.
I had the
In the
same I had the
90s.
same theory with the Covenant.
Um, so directed by Andrew Fleming. Got screenplay. Andrew Fleming worked on that as well, alongside Peter Filardi. Produced by Douglas Wick.
Harvey
Let's
Weinstein.
see.
Just
Oh,
kidding.
Oh
I'm just
no.
Oh,
kidding.
God,
I'm just kidding.
um, uh, but yeah, I thought that was like interesting of like all four like roles like being went through so many people until they found their four.
I mean, they found the
Um,
perfect Nancy, although I think Angelina would have done well.
yeah, yeah, and she was also when both her and Rachel True did test for it, like they were the first to be cast for this film.
I know that
Um,
Robin Tooney actually landed the part of Bonnie first,
mhm.
and that's what she wanted to do rather than the main girl, which is
Yeah,
I don't know why.
Well,
yeah.
that kind of tracks with her career decisions later on too. She doesn't seem to like being like the lead.
Right. I don't
She
really know
definitely
her from much,
Yeah,
honestly.
but the person that played Bonnie had to play Bonnie. She's not a lead actress at all. She's definitely
No,
a
she
solid
she is
secondary.
though.
Nev
I
Campbell, one of the most
Nev
famous final
Campbell,
girls of
yeah.
all time. You're
I mean,
right.
I'm thinking more on. I'm thinking more on I'm thinking more on Wild Things. She did amazing on Wild Things, and she was the supporting actress in Wild Things.
Yeah, I mean, I will
No,
say
fair,
she
fair.
didn't. I don't think she shined in this movie, Nev Campbell.
No, no, she did
I
not.
don't think she did shine in this movie, but I mean, she can handle a main role.
Yeah, totally. I agree with that. Um, the other stuff I have is like it was actually shot, in a high school and stuff. They just changed it to fictional Catholic high school.
Looked legit.
Um, yeah, it did look legit. The occult bookstore was shot at the El Adobe Marketplace on Hollywood Boulevard. Um,
Okay.
Yep. The room was repainted and enhanced with occult icons, um, and all the little accoutrement of the occult store was added for effect, because it's just a marketplace thing. Um,
I want to run an occult bookstore.
Yeah, I
yeah, that'd be
mean,
fun.
What a cool
is
job.
is it
Yeah.
past? I don't know. Will it do well in this day and age with Amazon and everything?
No, they're gonna get them all as like ebooks now.
Yeah.
Everyone's getting
Yeah,
their
pretty
crystal
much.
dildos online. It's got lead in
You
it.
know, just I can't compete with that.
But yours are lead free.
See,
That's
that's the
your
problem.
edge.
Yeah, lead
You
free.
gotta have
Yeah.
a physical book because the book itself contains some of the magic within it. Like, you can't just be looking at a cell phone. Cell phone ain't magical. It ain't got no
I'm gonna say you
power
order
to
it from Amazon though.
Other
I
interesting
was
thing,
saying
kind of
the
relating,
ebook comment.
kind of relating to like that day where the filming went all wild. While they were filming, there was a child that was like severely injured, and the production's team medics saw it first and actually called the paramedics to help out the kid.
Was
So
it due to the production?
no, it's unrelated accident, but still, it
Oh.
happened like while they were shooting.
On that day where they were, inciting real magic?
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if that's when it happened. It didn't give me a date. Let's see. Makeup and effects designs were created by Tony Gardner, and the special effects company Alterion, which also created the Beach Sharks.
Sharks look pretty good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like the Sharks. I think something that we all really liked about this, kind of turning a corner here, is the soundtrack, right?
Oh yes.
Oh yeah, definitely.
it worked.
I was
We
looking
love
at the
the
list of
soundtrack.
this.
It was great.
All right.
Definitely a very
So-
nostalgic soundtrack.
So, Tomorrow Never Knows, originally written by John Lennon and Paul McCartney, performed by Our Lady Peace. I Have the Touch, originally written by Peter Gabriel, performed by Heather Nova. All This and Nothing, originally written by Vinnie Dombrowski, performed by Sponge. Dangerous Type, written by Rick Ocasek, was performed by Letters to Cleo. Which
Wow,
Letters
tell me
to
your movie was in the 90s.
Yeah, I know, right? So other performers, we got Love Spit Love, Matthew Sweet performing his original work Dark Secret.
Which Love Spit Love was doing the Smiths cover.
Yep.
Yeah,
They were doing How
and
Soon
they
Is
used
Now.
that exact same cover for Charmed for the.
Did they use
the
the
intro
cover
song.
or
Oh,
the
that's awesome.
the
They used the
Smiths?
cover.
Okay.
Yeah,
We got
because the guy's trying to do his best Morrissey.
Yeah.
During-
It's not
It's
that
a pretty
bad.
good cover.
It's
yeah.
it's
not
pretty
bad. It's
pretty
not
close
bad.
to Morrissey.
And I thought the Beatles cover was good, and I'm very picky about Beatles covers, let me tell you.
Yeah, I'll have to look into this Our Lady Peace group.
I know you once booed me off the stage during karaoke.
Oh!
I don't remember that. I was probably drunk.
It
What
was
did I
me.
boo you for? What did you sing?
Come together.
Oh,
Oh,
that's why. That's her song.
It's because that's my go-to karaoke song. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for drunk murder behavior.
Stepped on her foot.
Yep. We also have Tripping Daisy, Jewel, All Too Much, Elastica, Space Hog,
Space
and
Hog.
Space Hog doing the song "The Horror," written by Bryce Goggin. And then we have Grim. Well, it's spelled ridiculously, but it's Grim Reveal.
Is that how it's pronounced? Really?
Probably. I mean, it
Wow.
looks like it's Grim Reveal to me.
That is a ridiculous spelling. You're right.
But yeah.
Since Omi mentioned that it's the theme song to Charmed, so
Oh, maybe not.
the director, or I think he directed and wrote it. Is that correct? Andrew Fleming.
Of this film? Yes.
Yeah.
correct.
He stated that Charmed ripped off this film. And, Fleming revealed that he wrote a pilot based off The Craft for Fox, and in which the WB was strongly interested, and that it was his idea to have the How Soon Is Now as the theme. The pilot was not picked up, but the following year, Charmed premiered.
Whew.
So
Motherfucker.
I
Oh,
don't know how much they
Okay.
ripped it off, or did they just,
They
who's to say? They
very close, because Charmed is about four sister witches like saving
older
like, fighting.
sisters, like
Yeah.
not high school, not
It's
old, but
they're
not
fighting.
high school
It's
age.
like a monster of the week type deal. Like,
It is a very monster of the week. So I don't know if that was his, original plan, or maybe they just took the theme song and he's like, "That was mine."
I feel they were trying to rip off more Buffy than the Craft, because the Craft they don't fight any like creatures or monsters or anything.
Yeah,
they just
I
fight
mean,
each
of
other.
course,
Yeah.
there's witches and the theme song, but I don't really see, definitely inspired by, but I don't see it as a direct
I mean,
ripoff.
I'm sure they took like his pilot as kind of like a baseline, and then they just kept like passing it to a different writer.
That
passing it
definitely
to a
could
different
have
writer, and passing it to a
happened
different
as
writer.
well.
Then a bunch of producers looked
Right.
at it, made some changes. Like he probably just got totally fucked.
I will
Yeah,
say the
and
only
he was mad about it.
The only same thing about the
Should be.
the two IPs is there's 4 female witches involved. That's where
Yeah.
that's everything else is completely different.
Oh, and you know what?
Yeah.
The Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV show did come out a year after The Craft. The movie was already made.
Oh,
Yeah, I feel
But
the
like
show-
Charmed-
Okay.
Premiered the year after The Craft.
And the movie was
again,
before,
I
right? That was
totally
like
feel
in-
Charmed was more
Yeah,
trying
the
to
Buffy movie
capitalize
is
on the
before.
Buffy crowd than the Craft crowd, because we done went over this. This wasn't very successful when it first came out. Like, this is a cult film. This isn't like a
There's just
I mean, it
entirely too many similarities, though, for it to not have at least borrowed some stuff.
Oh, for
you know?
sure.
yeah.
And
Like-
I did want to correct myself, because I said that the Buffy television show was already premiered when this movie was out, but it wasn't.
Okay.
When did Buffy come out?
March of 1997, and The
Wow.
Craft premiered in May of 1996. So, like, basically directly a year. But the Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie, that was like a few years before The Craft, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Joss
that was
Whedon had the
1992.
idea
Yeah.
for a while.
1992.
Also, with other like production stuff is like the bugs. I know Murda is definitely not fond of them or that scene.
Yeah, I don't know how I
Um,
lived in Florida, so
Yeah.
awful.
So the shot of Nancy being
not
covered
fun
in
for different
bugs
reasons.
was actually created by making a live cast of Bulk's head and torso in green screen material.
I'm sure
uh,
this movie was not PETA friendly.
Yeah, no, it was not. Also, Robin had to use a stunt double because she could not handle the rat falling on, like the rats that fall on top of her head.
Oof.
Which, I mean, I don't want a rat falling on my head, you know. And I
I
don't
also
really
saw
mind
that
rats all that much.
they used 3,000 real snakes.
Jeez.
Hey, sometimes an actor you kind of have to put a little bit of extra mile into it. I mean, John Leguizamo ate that maggot.
I ain't going
Real
on
nice.
this set. I ain't going on this
And that
fucking set. You crazy?
The snakes
I
don't
would-
bother me. The snakes don't bother me.
I have that as my number one phobia is snakes. So I would definitely need a snake stick.
They had both of ours because
Yeah.
mine is roaches. So
Oh yeah.
Definitely not.
I
was
would
not
much
feeling the
rather-
snakes.
I would much rather, be in a pile of snakes than a pile of roaches.
Yeah, I could do snakes.
Yeah, same.
I can do
will-
snakes.
I
I'd just
will
be
do
scared about
neither.
I wouldn't want to hurt them.
I will do
Yeah.
neither.
I wouldn't want to hurt them, but the roaches.
I've
ooh.
already
I-
been in piles of roaches.
I have a bad
Oh,
instinct.
God. I'm sorry to cut cut Starfish off though.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine. As mentioned earlier, of questioning the direction of certain things for Smokey's comment at the beginning of this review, there was a major dramatic scene cut in post production. And this is in the third act too, which I think kind of like, you know, um, goes alongside because that's like I feel like where most points of contention with this film are. Sarah feels that Nancy has completely lost her mind and suggests to the others that they cast a binding spell on her, which is the same one that Sarah eventually uses on her. However, Nancy
she
finds
fucks up.
out about.
That's not a binding spell. That's not how you do a binding spell.
Okay.
You didn't.
I wouldn't know.
you gotta have an effigy of the person, and then you gotta have you gotta have a skin, you gotta have hair nails, something to put on the effigy. Like, did she really fucked it up? Like, you can't just fucking
just
bind
wrapping it around a picture.
Yeah, you can't do that. You can't. That's it's close. It's close, but you gotta put the picture on an effigy. You gotta put the picture on something. It's got a
So
on
the
a
moral
on
of
a
the
humanoid
story
doll.
is, kids, don't watch The Craft and try to do magic.
Yeah,
It's not going to
don't-
work
yeah.
out that way.
Well, it depends because you can take what they said and go on a beach and have bats and waves across
Yeah.
you.
You,
So.
you can go.
Sounds
you
pretty
can-
cool to me.
I mean, if you want to fuck around and find out,
I'll
be
fuck
my
around and
guest.
find If it makes bats come around, it's pretty sweet. I take pictures of the bats. I'm on the beach. Waves can't get me.
So Nancy finds
Big
out
ass
about this and
tidal wave
verbally.
gonna come
she-
Dead
Nancy
dead
finds out-
sharks all in the waves.
Yeah,
I'd feel bad
Yeah.
about that.
floating around.
Think about the sharks.
Yeah, we do need to think about the sharks. Save the sharks.
Yeah, you should save the sharks. It'd be good.
Would you have any production notes since we're talking about the sharks? What about the dead sharks?
I think he was in
What were
the-
those
I think he was in the
I
middle
already
of
ta-
something.
I
Yeah,
already
you already
talked about
mentioned the
that.
dead sharks.
We already
He was in
mentioned
the
the
middle of
dead
something
sharks.
before he
Yep,
went all trolly.
Yeah. So the makeup and effects were designed and created by Tony Gardner. So please send him your ire for the scars on Nancy's face at the end.
He
Um,
spent too much money on the sharks.
The
sharks look
special
good.
effects company Alterion Inc. also create with him. That's Tony Gardner's company. They created all the beach sharks. for the film.
I think the sharks,
Okay.
the dead sharks, looked really good, but I had to laugh at like the variety of them.
Yeah, it was
It was
kind
like
of
just like,
silly.
oh, there's a hammerhead, there's a great white. Like,
There's
it
a
was just
there's a
fun.
nursery shark.
Yeah.
There's a tiger shark down
They
there for
wanted to
some
make
reason.
sure that
Some
all the
places.
species.
Some places.
I mean,
possible.
maybe
Not-
California is a big shark area, so
Mhm.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
A lot of sharks are pretty widespread too. There's a big variety of them, and they'll even kind of like hang out in their feeding frenzy too. Like you'll see
I
multiple
think
ones.
it would have been better if they had more sea life amongst. They should have had like a dolphin and a whale.
Yeah, like
Just
jellyfish.
mix it
yeah,
up a
that'd be-
bit.
That'd be cool.
Come on, why is it only sharks?
Yeah, why was it all sharks? Yeah.
I don't know. It seems like
Nope, only sharks.
maybe Manon was making
Oh,
a
maybe-
point.
Yeah,
Or yeah, maybe
could see that.
Yeah, maybe he's making a point. Yeah, I don't know. Unless it was like something that went wrong, like a protection thing, because that was like the only threats around them.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
be.
Who knows?
Anyway,
I don't know. I'm not a magic man.
Starfish, continue your thoughts so we can get into our final thoughts.
Oh yeah, sure. So with the scene that was cut, so Sarah convinces the other girls to cast a binding spell on Nancy, which I think would have kind of made all of us feel like, oh, everyone realizes that Nancy's like gone off the deep end. However, that was taken away. Nancy finds out that the girls were gonna gang up on her, so she verbally attacks all of them and scares Sarah off. This was going to be shot in the school, I guess, and this would also confirm, because of the entire school being there, that Rochelle is the only black girl in the school and is shunned for that reason.
Uh-huh.
But it was cut because Andrew Fleming felt that it diluted the power of the bathroom scene, um, where the girls properly turn on Sarah. He also felt that it seemed unrealistic that Bonnie and Rochelle would stay friends with Nancy after being attacked like that. So in
Yeah,
other words, to
I
make the
guess.
ending of the film work, they decided
Yeah.
to take this away. But you could also just make them go on Sarah's side instead. That also could have been a thing that could have happened.
You could
But
have just
nope.
thrown in like a Nancy's possessing them kind of line, maybe.
Yeah, could have done that too.
Anything
Could
besides.
Yeah, it could have had Nancy screaming in the bed, being like, "I control them, I rule them," something like
Yeah.
that. But nope.
Could have did
Um,
like a visual effect of like two like auras like connecting to Nancy from them. That would have been
yeah, that'd been cool too.
like when they're
Could it-
floating up in the room and they're like, oh, they like could have did like a flash to it, but that probably would have been some money.
Could have had Nancy like try to exploit like their weaknesses. Maybe even say like, "Oh, Sarah doesn't like you, Rochelle, because you are black," or like, or for the other chick, she thinks you're ugly. She's been saying that you're ugly.
Yeah,
Have a scene
Yeah,
where
like some,
she's
with a
controlling-
spell,
like, have a scene
like
where she has
whispering it into
puppets.
their ears when they're asleep or something.
Have like two puppets that
Yeah.
look like them, and have him like her controlling the puppets. That would been
some
yeah.
mild voodoo type of thing.
Yeah, or done like a real glamour or something.
Yeah.
This film was titled Der Hexen Club in Germany, and I really like the name of that.
Der Hexen Club.
Yeah.
I want that poster.
I
That'd be
kind of
cool.
wish my school had a hexing club. I would have went to that club.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would have. And that, I think we've covered most of the production because we were getting a lot of good production notes during the kind of break aparts of some of the scenes.
Yeah.
So if we want to jump to final thoughts, I'm totally cool with that.
Yeah. Let's
Are we
do
good?
it.
I'm down.
Are we all ready for final thoughts? Who's going
You boys?
first?
I guess I can go first. I am officially giving this a 3.5 rating. I do wish I could have given it a higher rating. But just, it started out very strong with the female empowerment, but we did not, follow that through in the last act of the movie, unfortunately. I would have loved for this to be like, yeah, they are getting revenge on all these people who have wronged them. For some reason, the film does present that as not being okay, and Sarah doesn't think that's okay. The person I'm just like, fuck yeah, kill more terrible people.
Yeah.
Or at least punish them, if not kill them.
Yeah.
That's always a fault of mine. I mean, Spooge and I have talked a lot about the Punisher, if he is a villain or a hero. I always land on, he's doing good work.
I would
Never
say that
killed
he
him.
gets
I-
portrayed
when-
as a villain, because I mean
I-
there's a bunch of things that he does that are off. I mean, there's like
when
a lot
has-
of people that haven't killed people, that are like drug dealers, and there's like pretty like low level.
No, yeah,
Like,
okay,
sometimes
so
just like low level
he's-
drug dealers you just like wipe out. That's
Drug
his whole
dealers-
thing, that he goes too far, and then there's always a misunderstanding. He's going after some innocent person.
I-
and then
I-
Sarah
I
does
get it, I get
that
it.
Fucking...
I'm on murder side on this. Hold on. I'm on murder side on this. Drug dealers kill people indirectly by ODs and stuff. So
I do, but I have some friends, that were or are.
Hey,
I don't want my friends to die.
I can't,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if the statute of limitations, but I did it in high school. So
Very, very low level, though. Very low level, and
Yeah.
usually just weed. But
I don't think.
anyway,
has he ever actively killed a weed dealer?
I'm sure you could like you could find
That's
something.
always that's always Spooge's point, is that he always goes too far. And I say, yeah, he does go too
And
far,
there's
but
so
man,
there's so many
some of
plot
the
points, literally, of him going after someone innocent, and Daredevil knows that they're
I
innocent, and
understand.
he
I
has to fucking
understand.
jump in.
I understand. I'm just saying, this doesn't negate the good work that he's done by killing and punishing some of the
He
people
tried to kill
who
Spider-Man. We literally like watched that.
I acknowledge this. I acknowledge this.
Hey,
I'm just saying,
to be
he's
honest,
done good work.
depending on what Spider-Man we're talking about, he's killed quite a few people, so
The Punisher then thereby should unalive himself. I'm sorry, by his own logic.
that is true.
I'm sure
that
that-
is true. I'm pretty sure he
Anyway,
would hunt
back
himself down if he could.
Back to
to
my-
Murda's final
thoughts on the
review.
pup-
Back to Murda's final thoughts.
I just, I love a good revenge, whether it's in the form of a vigilante or not. I was totally down for this movie to be like, let's punish rapists, let's not, try to get them back weirdly. Just kill them. Kill the dude
I'll take
who's
that.
sexually harassing his stepdaughter. Kill all those people.
Mhm.
But that's not what this movie was, and that's still fine. But it just, there's many paths that could have gone down that would have been better than Nancy getting jealous over a boy. Didn't like that, so couldn't give it a higher rating, unfortunately. It got a full half a point for its soundtrack, and for its clothes. I loved the fashion in this movie. It made me. Well, the 90s are kind of coming back in stores, so I can always, I go to thrift stores anyway, so I always find 90s shit. Beside the point.
Millennials are designers now.
Yeah, I never stopped. I don't really buy new clothes anyway that much. Anyway, I was what disappointed me even more than that is after the sexual assault attempt, Sarah is still like, but he's like, he's really a good guy, and that just made me want to scream, made me want to fucking scream. Because
I'm
no,
not defending him, but
Yeah.
maybe she was kind of blaming herself for the love spell.
she was, and that's also what made me want to scream, because even he still could have not tried to rape her.
I feel the love spell just brought out
Yeah.
his true self instead of.
Yeah, exactly. He had that in him to do. I don't think
Absolutely.
the magic made him do that. He had that in him already to do, and that just made me. I was like, is the bar so fucking low in the 90s that like a dude could try to sexually assault you and you're like, but he's good a guy. That made me upset. So yeah, 3.5 for me. But I mean, I did, there was so much of this I loved. I mean, I did love when they were showing the friendship scenes, like before it turned. I loved the bond between teenage girls. They're strong. I still have my teenage girl bond 20 years later in my best friend. So there was a lot of good in this movie. I wish it took a different turn. 3.5.
All right. I guess I can go next if nobody
it.
else wants to.
Yeah.
I'm at a 3.5 out of 5 as well. I didn't like if it wasn't clear through the rating, through the review, I did not like the direction that was given throughout this movie. It did not seem like the director knew what they wanted. It seemed like they were very conflicted on most of the scenes. Like everything seemed very confused and very unformulaic. There was in the plot turn of everybody, even Nancy, kind of like their turn on Sarah was way too harsh and too abrupt. It wasn't a gradual. It was like, oh, we automatically hate this bitch. Let's fucking fuck her up. And it just the pacing of the third act is way too fast. It didn't have any time to breathe. They wrapped it up and it's like, but you didn't do anything. You just set everything back to the status quo, and Nancy's in a mental institution. Like that, nothing was really solved or resolved or any like no. They I don't feel that it was enough punishment because I guess this is just me. I don't feel being put in a mental institution was a warranted punishment for Nancy. I mean, I know that it's hard to. She murdered people. She's actively murdered people. I know it's almost impossible to prove witchcraft, but witchcraft is still legal. So I feel like instead of putting her in a psych ward, she should have just been locked away. I don't feel she got the right punishment. I feel Bonnie and I can't believe I'm blanking on her name. Rochelle, yes. I feel they didn't really get a punishment, though they kind of there was no indication that they didn't unwillingly turn on Sarah. They, as far as we know, they willingly turned on her. So it's like all they had was Sarah scare them at the end. I don't feel that's a warranted punishment for them. They should. Nancy shouldn't have been the only one to get the punishment. It's very unfair. So that really irked me, and Chris's whole character, like, this is like the 7th time that I've seen this movie, and I did not remember him. Like, he's just so forgettable, unfortunately for me. It just his acting.
Maybe it's because I've known too many Chris's that he was too real.
Yeah, I didn't know any Chris's in my life. That I do have to state that, like, he seemed like a caricature to me. Especially
most Chris's suck.
Him and his best friend both seemed like just like cliche movie douchebags that were too up their own asses. I just have never
I've known
encountered.
good Chris's.
I've just never known anybody like maybe like a
most
light
of the Chris's
version.
I know are obviously gay.
Yeah, maybe that's the deal. Like all the Chris's that I known, like
Part of the problem.
I have a
Can't
good.
Can't be a straight.
I have a
Chris's are
decent
bad.
gaydar, so maybe that's the problem.
I've experienced Chris's, and then the rumor or them just directly saying, "Yeah, I slept with her too many times."
I've known people like that, but they didn't act like
It's fucked
Chris
up.
did. They didn't act like that. Like they didn't act. They were just like very nonchalant about it. They didn't seem to make it their whole personality. That's all Chris was about, was like sleeping with somebody and then spreading nasty, malicious rumors about them. It's like, what's the gain? What's the goal? What's the initiative behind that? I don't understand.
Clout. High school clout.
High
school clout. Oh, it's only her second day here, and I've already
misogyny.
Hit that. Yeah.
Projecting insecurities.
It just,
Yeah,
I guess
it's
not a
goal was
clout that you could
fairly
see.
apparent.
In my high school, and while I was in high school, it just wasn't. I guess I can't understand, because in my high school, that wasn't a clout you could chase. That wasn't like something you could brag about. You couldn't sit around like and make up, because it was very obvious when someone was. Which that's also another thing I got it. Like, everybody but just automatically believes Chris. There's not one dude that's like, what the fuck ever, dude. Your
he's
whole
a man.
line about hooking up in general, which
I don't
there
mean
is
to
no
keep
doubt.
interrupting your final thoughts, but I think in that situation, it doesn't necessarily matter if like people believe him or not. Like, they kind of relish in the rumors anyway.
True,
whether
true.
The rumor mill.
It's
Yeah.
different
Also,
for your experience.
it's
'cause
a 100-minute
high schools are gonna have some-
movie. Like, I feel
Go on.
like you need yourself like a whole like Chris miniseries.
Oh no!
Goodbye.
I don't want a
God.
Chris miniseries. I
Gross.
don't want it.
But yeah, it just.
But I can attest from what you're saying, Smokey, that you can't. What you're saying is that you can't exactly. That wasn't exactly your experience, because I mean, high schools are going to have way different cultures depending on high school too, of like
Yeah,
the
I just
environment.
never experienced a Chris, and it's very alien to me. They could have made him a little more believable, I feel. It just again, but that goes with back to the direction point. I really did not like this movie's direct. They didn't do. It's very obvious that most scenes needed 2 takes. I can
It was
finally
so
get into this.
believable.
There was the running scene. Y'all know what scene I'm talking about. That
Yeah.
scene needed to be redone. That was definitely a 1 take scene that they had to redo. It sticks out like a sore thumb. It's definitely the intro. Like it's bad. But other than that, I like the acting. The cinematography is great. The magic system could have been explained. This is another. I guess this is another negative, that the magic system wasn't really explained too well. I get, like, if you do production, like, yes, they did have an actual Wiccan on set, but you'd feel the Wiccan would want them to explain a little bit what's going on, because they don't, and what they do is half-hearted and completely wrong. It's like, if you do magic like this, you're gonna just fuck up and it's gonna come back on you in a bad way. You don't do magic like this movie. I definitely feel that the actresses might have had some repercussions done. That is one thing that wasn't answered in the production note. Like, what was their lives like after fucking up all this magic? But other than that, yeah, 3.5 out of 5 for me.
All right. I mean, I can see that. I'll take the next one here. So for me, this was my first viewing of The Craft. And I will say that I wish that I would have watched this in my more angsty years. Because like I feel some of the things that happen in this like fairly deeply, regardless of the gender gap there between me and these women. But I also have to maybe piggyback a little bit on Murda's statement here, is just, this film tricks you. It makes you think that this is going to be a pure like feminine empowerment. These girls are witches. They're going to take control of their lives. They're going to they're going to do better, get out of their situation. And in the end, we get, the trope of like, oh well, of course they're going to fight over a boy, because what else could they want? And I really did not appreciate that, and it was very sour after having like so much other like subplots going on, like with um Bonnie like coming into her own skin a little bit, and with Rochelle like not having to deal with like blatant racism. And this is what I meant like earlier in this review of like some of these punches swing and they get you right on the chin and you're like, oh yeah, fuck yeah. And then other of these punches are just like, what were you even swinging at, dude? Like, why are we gonna continue to like play into these tropes of, you know they're teenage girls, all they care about is boys essentially. And I did not care for that at all, especially considering the time that it came out in 96. Like, having a film where it's all protagonists in this film are women. Like, I was like really stoked to like hopefully go a different direction with it. And I guess at 96 that just wasn't in the cards. um
Also written
and
by a man.
also written by a man and also directed by a man.
That
So
explains a
that's
lot.
that's a lot of it for me. So the first 2/3 of this film earn 2 stars, and then the soundtrack gets a half star, leaving with a grand total of 2.5 stars for this film. Everything like if it would have continued on the narrative that they had going, that it felt like and it seemed like, based off of the writing and the acting and the interactions that they were going to do, this film for me would have been an easy 4 or 4.5. However, the decision to turn it into jealousy and women against women, for essentially very trivial things, to powerful witches who can literally kill people, um, that just really, really soured me. Because like pretty much like once the whole like turning started and it was very abrupt and kind of juddering for me, it was not a smooth transition into protagonists becoming antagonists. I was like, man, like I wasn't like checking the time or anything, but I was just like disinterested because we've already cast Sarah as the bad girl. We already know that she is the good in this film, so she is going to clearly win this battle. Like as soon as the Nancy collision started happening, after the situation with Chris happens where she looks like Sarah, but she's actually Nancy. Like, as soon as that started to happen and I realized what was going to happen after that, I just was not very happy about it. And also losing like a full star for the fact of this movie's not sure how it wants to portray or do uh, consent. Like, it just does not. I don't like the grappling with consent in this film is weird to me. I really dislike that Nancy disguised herself as Sarah to sleep with Chris. And then also I just am not a big fan in general of like sexual assault happening in films either. Um, and I don't know. It just I did I didn't I really really disliked that about the film. That that was Nancy's actions. Like, she's so powerful. She's already killed 2 people at this point. You would think that she just wouldn't even care about Chris, but nope. Gotta go sleep with him again, I guess, after something happened between them in the past. I don't know. But anyways, for me, final score here is a 2.5 out of 5.
All right, Spooge, Omi.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
We can finish
Okay.
off with our special guest.
Okay. Sounds good.
Alrighty. Because I'll be pretty short anyway. 3.5 for me. Uh, pretty much for a lot of the reasons Starfish and Murda said. I definitely wish there was at least a little bit more context for the turning on Sarah with the whole group, with like a little bit of more manipulation or something like that. Definitely disappointed also of like what it could have been. It could have been a nice. It could have been really a fun, revenge porn. Uh, that's something. And I'm going to go back to the Punisher for a second to as a thing why I hated this new Punisher series is because they didn't let him go like go fully or sorry, go all the way because like he had this like little girl saying like, oh, you don't kill them, and he like let like a a child prawn fucking photographer like leave too. I'm like, that's exactly the type of person
That's who
you
needs
want
to die.
steal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly the person you love to watch Punisher fucking bluff. And he's not supposed to be a hero. He's supposed to just kind of like be a exploitation on like like what people want for justice sometimes, what you don't get in the real life in the real world, and could have got this with this. Could have got some fun like spooky witch kills, but it still captured the time, I think, for better and for worse. And I mean, the soundtrack definitely helps it with that too. Just brings you on a little journey right back to the 90s. So it's very nostalgic in that way. So yeah, I enjoyed the overall aesthetic of it mainly, and that's what it gets at 3.5. And there you go.
All right, Omi, you're up. So final thoughts.
Cool. So my final thoughts on The Punisher. No, I'm kidding. Uh, no,
Nice.
when at the beginning of this whole thing, when we first started, I thought I was going to give this a pretty strong 3.5, but just revisiting it and talking with all of you guys, I think I'm leaning more towards a 2.5 because a lot of my positives that I was giving it were based on kind of like its influence in other media and what it's done for the culture and its status as a cult classic versus the film itself. It's not very good. There are some good things in it, but like a lot of things that everyone else has said, tonally, I don't know what they were going for. Obviously, they wanted a PG-13 movie, but they got an R movie and they kind of played with that a little bit. Um, but they didn't seem to really know who the story was for at all. And that kind of confusion led literally all of us to come away with different interpretations of what happened at the end in that third act. Like none of us had the same ideas for that at all. And I think that's completely the fault of the filmmaker. Like, we the I took from the beginning of the movie that the girls were using Sarah the entire time, right? Nobody else
Yeah, I
did.
didn't get that until I
Uh,
read
No.
that.
No, I
you
I
know,
kind
Yeah,
of
no,
thought they were
I didn't
friends
get that till
before
you
the
said
movie
it.
even started. I got that feeling.
so, the betrayal didn't seem that big of a deal at the time, but the filmmakers kind of wanted you to feel like it was. And I was just like, but why?
I
You've
felt
given
betrayed.
us
Yeah,
nothing. I was
yeah.
like, you've given us nothing here. They've been using this girl from Jump, and like just little things like that to where I was just like, oh, okay, this movie has like a really good soundtrack, and that's it for me. Like,
Oh,
um, Perusa Bulk's performance is very good, and the rest of the cast goes on to do much better work, but this ain't it. So for that, I'm giving it. You know what? I'm gonna even lower down, just a straight two, not even a 2.5.
Wow.
ooh,
Oh
Yeah,
man.
scathing.
Feruza Balk herself gets a 5 out of 5 for her
she
performance.
does
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Hardly.
she
everything.
does. She does. She gets a solid 5.
Well,
But yeah.
apparently she bought that magic shop, so she wasn't even acting. She was just
Being herself.
being
Fuck
herself.
yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
That I think we done it. I think I can get into the outro. Was was that it? Do we have anything else?
I think that's it.
No,
All
that's
right.
it.
All right. If you've been listening this long, thank you so much. Please like, comment, and share the video around. Turn on notification. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Omi, do you want to shout out to your socials?
Yeah, please give me a follow if you guys like to hear more reviews. I do comic book reviews on YouTube under Reading Rainbow, and you can even follow me on TikTok under the name Flamebird42, where I do more of that.
Do it.
Awesome. That's super cool.
All right. And does everybody have a sign off?
You know I got one. I got one every time, bud.
Okay. I guess you will have to start.
Okay. All right. True magic is neither black nor white. It's both, because nature is both loving and cruel all at the same time. The only good or bad is in the heart of the witch. Life keeps a balance on its own, you understand? Not really. Well, then understand this. Whatever you send out there, you get back times 3. Wait, we didn't read that in any book. No. It's part of a basic spiritual truth, said in many ways in many faiths. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
All right.
Scene.
Sweet.
Murda, Spooge, Omi, any of y'all? Do y'all got to sign off?
My sign off. Omi, I'm sorry I booed you off of stage during karaoke. That doesn't sound like me at all.
It doesn't.
I would never do anything like this. Slander. No.
Prove it.
I go from apologizing to saying that you're lying. So
Just gaslight me the whole way. That's fine. How Chris of you.
Oh,
I'm the
Chris
Chris.
call out.
I'm
No,
the Chris.
no, not murder.
Am I hot? Am I hot or am I not? I don't know.
Oh, you're hot.
Oh,
you're hot.
I was in the hot camp on Skeeto Rich, so I'm not changing it.
Oh, hot indeed.
Any more sign-offs? It can be. Omi's not done a sign-off. It can be whatever, just random.
Okay, I got one specifically for this. So if you run out of bullets, it probably means we're both dead. Oh wait, that's a Punisher quote.
Oh, the subplot of the review plot.
It happened.
And I guess I'll just say, for anybody who wants some good spooky music for October, listen to the band Bellwitch. Some good atmospheric
Yeah.
chugging death.
Shout out.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, I just found out about them yesterday.
Nice. And my sign off is, if you're gonna fuck with magic, just know you're gonna fuck around and you're gonna find out. This will be a
Ooh.
Dun,
bye.
dun, dun.
Bye-bye.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Is he here?
Do it! Just do it! Don't let your dreams be dreams. Yesterday, you said tomorrow, so just do it! Make your dreams come true! Just do it! Some people dream of success while you're gonna wake up and work hard at it. Nothing is impossible! You should get to the point where anyone else would quit, and you're not gonna stop there. No, what are you waiting for? Do it! Just do it! Yes, you can! Just do it! If you're tired of starting over, stop giving up.
Are you sure about that?